Hey, what's up? You're here early. You can't miss me. I'm the internet. You can try. Thank you for the resubscription. Sharon C. Appreciate it.
What you think about when you're born into a fire. Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They want to let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away. We feel big.
I'll play in just a second. The new national anthem. If you promise to take off your hat, stand and cover your heart.
Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt we've been.
I'm already doing that for you. Yeah.
Let the truth fade away.
Fully erect. That's what I expect.
This is bigger than ourselves. We won't let the world burn away. Burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake it through the back of the pack. Kill it anyway. To play. Haters face the world's mistakes. Wake it through the back of the pack. Kill it anyway. And we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the
No half mast there, full mast. That's it. The only way we go. Any of you guys have been keeping up with what they're doing in North Carolina currently? The Supreme Court race? They're still trying to steal that race, dude. It is fucked up. We'll talk about it in a second. First of all, roll the intro, and I'll get the national anthem keyed up.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Every head bowed, every eye closed. No looking arounds. It's time for the national anthem.
Tesla is not the enemy. Tesla is an American company. Praying peace, prosperity, and protection in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, God's Son. Satan is the enemy, seeking to kill, steal, and destroy our country. Praying wisdom, peace, and protection in
Said you want an encore?
the name of Jesus Christ, God's Son. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
Tesla is not the enemy. Okay, someone asked how they could find it. I don't know who this lady is. I found it on a Twitter page called Christian Nightmares. And they often post funny stuff that have to do with, like, people claiming to be Christians. I don't know if they're Christians or not. But we haven't seen this one. What's this one?
They removed her eggs. They did a lady in Toronto. They removed her eggs. And surgically removed them. She came up and she was crying because she said, I never should have let them do that. I just touched her real gently and you know that God touched her. She came back and the surgeon that took those very eggs out said, where did you get these? And
Ooh.
were put back inside of her. So we're seeing things that miracles, remember, aren't instant.
Praise the Lord.
Healing.
Jesus put eggs back inside of her. It's not like she ovulates once a month, okay? They took her eggs forever.
Is gradual. And miracles, anything that's not supposed to happen, it's against logic.
There you go.
Toronto.
It's a Twitter account called Christian Nightmares, and there it is. It was posted on April 4th. There's some pretty good videos on there. But there you go. There you can check it out. Thank you for joining us. I'm Will Bird. This is Cold Beer Confessional. I appreciate you guys being here. I've been trying to think how to explain trade deficit to the MAGA people. Okay, like not normal people. Normal people look at the stock market and they're like, "Oh shit, that's probably a bad indicator," and it is. It's not everything, right? It's not your job, probably. It's not your savings account, probably. It's not the interest rate, probably. But it's definitely one of the indicators of how the country's doing. And Donald Trump is hung up on this fixation. We saw his chart, the tariffs he claims that other countries have on us are not at all accurate. What they did was take total imports minus exports divided by imports. And that gave them the tariff the country has on us. Okay? Because, like, the worst case scenario when you look at the EU, Donald Trump's chart says 39%. The worst case scenario when you look at the EU, viewed in the most negative light, they have like a 3 or 4% tariff. They claim a 1% tariff because they're not doing an average tariff. They're actually doing like a huge percentage of their stuff is in a lower tariff category, and then some of it's in like cars are in a higher tariff category. So if you just took all the tariffs and averaged them, they're about 4%. But if you did it per capita, not per capita, per item, they import a whole lot more small shit from us than they do cars. It's probably more like 1%. So Donald Trump puts, a 25% tariff on it? Like, that's insane. But it's because his fixation on trade deficit, right? So imagine you have a farm. You grow lemons, okay? You give people lemons so they can make lemonade. And you have a huge farm that grows lemons. And you approach Walmart. And you get a deal with Walmart to sell them lemons. Okay? Right? You get a deal with Walmart to sell them lemons. That's going to be it's going to be such a huge contract. Millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of lemons, right? They're going to put it in every Walmart in the United States, let's say. Now, you're a farmer, right? And a family. Do you think it would be fair for Walmart to say, we buy $10 million worth of lemons from you? You have to buy $10 million worth of your groceries from us. There's a power dynamic. Like Bangladesh, if we import millions of dollars in spices from Bangladesh, they're poor as fuck. They are never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to import the same amount that we import from them. We're the wealthiest country in the world. Even Canada, right? Canada is a pretty wealthy country. Even Canada, their population compared to ours is minuscule. So if you just look at the trade deficit, yeah, we buy a lot more shit from them than they buy from us. They got 40 million people. We buy a lot more shit. They're the size of California. But if you do it per capita, per person, and in the U.S. and in Canada, every American, if you take all the trade, first of all, it's all to do with their oil. But even if you throw that out of the window, let's just say all the trade between U.S. and America, if you do it per person, in the U.S., every person is basically responsible for about $1,000 worth of imports from Canada. And if you do it the other way around, they have a lot less people. So even though they import less from us, they have a lot less people. So if you do it the other way around, every Canadian is responsible for 7 times that amount. Every Canadian is responsible for 7 times, $7,000 worth of imports from the United States. But it would be ridiculous for us. We buy almost all of their oil. That's why the Keystone extension wasn't that big a deal. They wanted the Keystone XL extension to sell more of their oil to the world instead of the U.S. We buy almost all of it right now because they don't have a good way to transport it. But there's no way in the world all the shit we buy from Canada with our population size and their population of 40 million people to expect, hey, we import $350 billion of stuff from you. You better import $350 billion worth of stuff. What are they going to do? Fucking stack it in the goddamn Arctic? They don't even have enough people to do it. I don't understand what the goal is. I think his goal is he wants people to respect him. He may even be outside of his constitutionally allotted powers doing this. The only reason he's getting away with the tariff thing is because the Republican Congress refuses to talk about it, and he's basically declaring a national emergency that other countries are screwing us over. So it's a national emergency. That's why we're doing tariffs. Tariffs are part of the fucking purview of Congress. That's why we have acts. Like we went over the Smoot-Hawley Act or whatever. That was an act of Congress. It's kind of weird for him unilaterally to do this. There are some people that are talking about it. I just don't think they're going to bring it up in front of a wider audience. There are some people in Congress that are saying, hey, he's not allowed to do this. Is our job. But it seems like a lot of Republicans are really fine with saying, hey, like even shutting down government agencies. That's the purview of Congress. But it seems like a lot of Republicans are fine just ignoring the fact that he's doing their job. And these jobs are specifically separated, so he shouldn't be able to do their job, and they shouldn't be able to do his job. They should be different fucking jobs that only they can do. That's how we keep a balance of power. It's just very weird. Even, let's see. I think I got the video. Here you go. The Japanese market, basically, they call it tripping a breaker. But the Japanese futures market was in free fall this morning. It fell so much that the market just closed. It has like these preset, if it plummets so far, they just shut the market down.
Bad news, Justin, the circuit breaker in the Japanese futures markets has been triggered and trading has been halted. The circuit breaker was hit as the market plunged due to Donald Trump's tariffs. Many markets have these circuit breakers that are meant to prevent a catastrophic collapse of the stock market in a single day.
If every other country in the world is an indicator of at about 3 a.m., well, is it? No, it's 4 a.m. Is it 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. where the early futures market will open in Europe? And it seems like all the indicators are we're going to continue a downward spiral.
Of trading, it was just hit in Japan. There's potential for the circuit breaker to hit in the United States markets tomorrow. And if this current situation isn't bad enough, Trump just made the situation much worse on Air Force One.
The problem with Congress is the fact that just because we introduce a bill, it may never, ever, ever, ever be heard, right? The speaker, unless you go around him like they did with the maternity bill, the speaker can just refuse to hear it. So if you weren't watching the maternity bill thing, they wanted maternity leave for Congress members, just 3 months after birth, and to be able to vote by proxy while they were on maternity leave. He refused to hear it, refused to put it to vote, refused to allow debate. They actually got enough signatures to go around him, Mike Johnson or whatever. They got enough signatures to go around him. But had they not had all those signatures, then they'd just been sitting there. They couldn't even get it heard.
Doubling down on his tariffs, then taking to his social media platform and bragging about the tariffs. It appears at this point, anytime Donald Trump speaks, the global markets collapse. This is a quickly...
So okay. How close are you to retirement? I do think something's got to break, and he'll eventually back up. I do think eventually it'll come back up. I hope we're not headed into like the fucking Great Depression era. I do think eventually it'll come back up. Something's got to give. He's got to back off this. Congress is going to have to step in. Somebody's got. They're not. I don't think they're going to let him take the market down to fucking zero.
The unfolding situation, and it looks like the worst is ahead of us. So buckle up, folks. We're gonna get.
Okay, 10 years. I know it sucks watching it, but I would say you're better off probably riding it out, and hopefully it'll be replenished and more in 10 years.
Continue to follow this and so much more. So make sure you're following our account and add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Oh, Zay, you haven't been here since my sister moved to Kentucky. After both of our parents died really close to each other. She just wanted to get out of here. It reminded her of our parents too much. And her husband has some family in Kentucky. So they moved up there and have been there for, wow, it's been a while, I guess, up in like near London, Kentucky. I don't know why the fuck. I just don't know, man. I know what wealthy people are doing. Wealthy people are going to put money in the stock market while it's on the dip. they're diversified. Don't get me wrong. There's a chance they're not going to put all their money in it and lose everything. But I guarantee you they're buying up stocks while everything's in free fall. I guarantee it. I know there was some flooding. Actually, let's look. I know there was some flooding in Kentucky recently. I asked my sister, she's all right. She said they just been getting a lot of rain. They're not flooded, though.
Let's keep an eye on this threat for severe weather. In the meantime, we want to take it on the ground. We've been talking about places caught up within this region for several days now. Jeffersontown, Kentucky, this is one area.
The problem is most people are still like you might have a little bit of a retirement account, but a lot of people are at the point of fucking paycheck to paycheck or close to it, especially. And stop. Don't let anybody tell you that Trump is crashing the economy on purpose, because that'll flood the bond market. And then there'll be too much money in the Fed, so the Fed will have to reduce interest rates, okay? It doesn't matter how much money goes into the bond market. The Fed does not have to reduce interest rates. Even if Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said, reduce interest rates, he can't even command them to do it, okay? There's a meme video going around that makes this claim, and that the reduced interest rates, you don't have that much money in the stock market, but wouldn't it be better if your house payment, your car payment, reducing interest rates also raise inflation, okay? When money's easier to get access to and more people are spending money because the interest rates are lower, inflation goes up. Literally since COVID, our biggest battle has not been interest rates, okay? It's been inflation. Everything is so fucking expensive. If his master plan is to crash the market to reduce inflation or to reduce interest rates, inflation is going to go through the fucking roof. So yeah, your car interest rate will be super cheap. Your car will now cost $180,000, but at least you'll be able to finance it at 3% or 1% or whatever. That's so fucking dumb.
Area where,
and not to mention, they act like, so the Elder Molino did a video on it today, and I called him out. They act like as if the interest rate and the stock market are tied together. They're not. They're not in any way. We use the interest rate to help combat inflation, right? When inflation's high, we raise it a little bit. When it's low, we drop it a little bit, whatever we can get away with. But it's not tied to the stock market in any way, shape, or form. They're looking at a ton of factors. They're looking at inflation. They're looking at the stock market. They're looking at the average price of everything, the oil market. They're looking at everything to make this decision. Historically, there have been times where the stock market was getting fucked up, and we did lower interest rates to kind of bail out the stock market. But everybody's against bailing out businesses to the detriment of their people, right? They've done it to us again and again and again and again and again. Like, we shouldn't be bailing out big banking institutes, big investment institutes, the stock market to the detriment of everybody else in the United States. It's not a good thing.
we had quite a bit of destruction as a result of these storms and tornadoes. We have Fox weather correspondent Brandy Campbell, who is joining us now from here, Jeffersontown, Kentucky. So
that's the problem. So what you just said, now I'm scared to continue doing anything. The market, okay, it's not like, let's say Apple dropped 20%. Apple didn't become 20% less valuable, right? They didn't lose 20% of their income. They didn't fire 20% of their workers. It's the uncertainty that the market fucking hates. It's the uncertainty that destroys. No one knows what the fuck he's doing. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. Now there's this weird reciprocal thing that doesn't even seem to be reciprocal to anything except a number they made up. Like fear right now is driving the market, which is not a good thing. We've got to get past that. But I think you'll be safe long before. I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Take it with a grain of salt. But I think if you got 10 years to retire, I think you'll be back in the on the good side of it before too long.
believe, this is just right to the south of Louisville. So the flash flood warning, you are under the flash flood warning, I believe, right, Brandy, where we've had several inches of rain so far.
Yeah, that's correct. We're under the flash flood warning until 8 o'clock tonight. And I actually just spoke with emergency management. That is definitely a high concern of theirs that they are monitoring. I know the city, inside of the city limits of Louisville, they already have some roads that are closed off, areas that they know are known to flood. So it's not just the tornado damage that happened basically just after midnight or let's just say 12:30 in the morning on Thursday, but it's this tornado damage. So right now, this is KEP Electric. This is where their building was. So they do electricity, HVAC, and such for, any.
Banks typically crash because runs on the bank. So if for some reason, like the market's in free fall and people begin to doubt the banking system and go and try to withdraw all their money out, that it's people running at the bank trying to withdraw all their money.
Any customers, of course, you can see their building is completely twisted up and just strewn about. You're just seeing the metal sheeting at this time. This is one of few buildings here in this area that is just completely destroyed. I spoke with the coordinator for emergency management.
That's like a tornado.
And she said there are about 60 homes that have some level of damage and around 80 businesses that also have damage. And of course, with what we're seeing here, some of them completely destroyed. And just now, I want to know, we did have some lightning in the area. Storms are starting to get into this area. It's currently raining, of course, but that's another development.
Japan is really pissed at the U.S., it seems. Japan seems like they're really pissed. Like they've been a good ally basically since World War II. Okay? They've been over backwards. They've helped us. Obviously, they're still making their money doing their things, but they've been a great ally and trade partner. And it's almost like a slap in the face to them. So if they're already getting fucked and doing business with us and not making as much money as they could make, why wouldn't they just get fucked and go make more money?
Right now, there goes the thunder from that lightning. So probably a good time to start getting folks inside. I mean, you can see you have crews right here that are actively working. I see AT&T printing on the back of that truck. So they're working to get their lines back up right now. But with this that flash of lightning, I didn't see a strike, but I'm assuming they might have to start pulling back from their operations if things do get worse. Now, as we take a look further back, I want to show more of that damage to another large warehouse that seems to be part of the victim to some of these tornadoes that have, or potential tornadoes, I should say, that have touched down in some of these areas. Yesterday, we were at a large warehouse that was partially collapsed. You're taking a look at this one, and you can see some of that sidewall facing us is now.
There's also a lot of countries that feel fucked, right? Feel like we fucked them. Don't think for a minute that China's not reaching out to those countries. There's a lot of countries that we've helped, that we've traded with, that we've been good allies with to keep them on our side. Because China's big thing is the Belt and Road Initiative. And 1,000,000% China's saying, oh, we wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't leave you out like this. We're not worried about charging you a 99% tariff for your island full of seals and penguins.
Almost collapsing toward us. And Lloyd, if I can get you to walk towards me a little bit, you can even see they're using some heavy equipment to actually keep that wall up from further collapsing. If you guys are able to see that on the right.
Oh shit! Yeah, they got some type of boom arm or something holding part of the building up.
Of the building, they're using
a couple of them
pieces of equipment keeping that wall up. There's
that's an excavator. No, it looks like a loader with. That's an excavator bucket. That's weird looking. Is it a rubber tear? Oh, it's a backhoe. Okay, that makes more sense. I thought the cab was facing this way. It's a backhoe.
People inside, it looks like they might be trying to move some of the product, potentially. I see you have one piece of equipment actually coming out of that building right now. I don't know if we can see that visually. It's a little bit of a distance from where we are. Let's see, Lloyd, if you want to keep walking with me, we might be able to see that as well. So, again, this is just an example of what folks across this part of the U.S. is really dealing with. It's day after day, severe weather causing these tornado touchdowns that are really deeply impacting these communities. And it's a double whammy, of course. It's not just the severe weather in terms of tornadoes, but it's also the flash flooding. Not far from where we are,
one of the things that we should, as the working class, we should have never, ever, we should have fought tooth and nail. Literally, if it came down to it, we should have been in the fucking streets fighting over, was the move from guaranteed pensions to like contribution-based 401ks and IRAs. You used to get a good job at a company and you had a guaranteed pension, right? You promised to stay there and work for them for so many years, and you were guaranteed a retirement outside of the fucking stock market, right? You had a pension guaranteed. Then there was this massive change, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, to where, 80s too, to where you got to invest money. We might match it. We might not match it. We might do this. But now it's in a 401k in the stock market, and you're responsible for it.
We did hear of, when it comes to the flash flooding, one death that was confirmed. It's about 50 miles east of where we are. We're going to try to head there soon. But we did get confirmation that a young boy, he was actually headed to the bus stop early this morning, just, I believe, around 6:40 in the morning when he was caught.
This is the story I was looking for. They said a young boy was swept away by floodwaters.
And it took about 2
Why the fuck was he going to a school? They didn't cancel schools? He was headed to the school bus stop this morning.
hours for first responders to actually find him, and unfortunately he was announced deceased, and so that is some very unfortunate news coming out of the state.
That's
this morning.
awful.
The governor for Kentucky, he did announce.
We just went through this flood. My shit got fucked, dude. My camper that we live in was floating. Like, floating. It's now in a different position than where we had it parked, and the tires are like sunk down in the fucking gravel.
They do have swift water rescue teams already mobilized here in the state, just anticipating what could happen with the flooding. And it's not just flash flooding, but you have river levels that are also rising, some of them getting, not just into action stage, but minor flood stage, or maybe higher going into the early days of next week. So it's a multifaceted weather event that folks are dealing with. But here, just in the outskirts of Louisville, it's the tornado damage. And I do want to note the National Weather Service, they haven't done their official surveys just yet. They're a little short-staffed. Some people off from work this week. So they're focusing the people who are in the office right now on the ongoing threat to make sure that the residents in their zone can stay up to date with the latest. But emergency management did tell me for this track that they've noticed, they see that there is debris that's been lofted about a mile outside of the directed impacted zone, just showing the strength of this tornado. It's been able to loft stuff a mile away from the original track. Back to you.
Yeah, Brandy, I appreciate you updating, just really driving home just the significance of the flooding in Kentucky. Real quickly, Frankfort, where you reported the sad death of the child, that you're going to head and cover that side of the story. Frankfort, just to the east of Louisville, and it sits right along the Kentucky River. And it looks like right now the Kentucky...
Even when Social Security was first set up, it was supposed to be part of a three-legged stool, right? So even when Social Security was set up, Social Security is the bottom, right? It's the safety nets, but it's supposed to be part of a three-legged stool where you have Social Security as your safety net. You have a pension. Hopefully, you got with a company, stayed there, and got a pension out of it, and then your savings and investments. Right, and a 401k could be one of those investments. That was supposed to be your retirement. Now, the way the fucking job market is, dude, it's hard to even have a decent fucking 401k anymore. Like, and then you got to depend on the market, and hopefully you weren't retiring in April of this year. Like, holy shit.
Kentucky River expected to hit major flood stage by the time we head into the weekend. Just heartbreaking news coming out of Kentucky this morning. Brandy, we appreciate that update out of Jeffersontown. Thank you.
That's horrible. The floods are wild, dude. That's the first time I've been in a flood like that. I've been to other places where there was a flood. I've helped people cross a river one time during a flood. I got deployed to the National Guard one time with a bunch of trees down and floods and hurricanes. But man, seeing our fucking home and not being able to fucking do anything, right? The kids were crying. Everybody had to evacuate uphill. We had to hike out. Man, that shit was fucking rough. I don't wish that on anybody. I can imagine a fire would be even worse, like the wildfires they have. But damn, I don't wish that shit on anybody. That was bad. I want to see this. Most intense tornado I've ever streamed.
Fox alert, large tornado on stream, Take my stream ASAP.
Holy shit.
Channel 1.
That's huge, dude. That's so far off, and look how wide it is.
Power flashes,
Yeah.
power flashes.
This thing looks violent. Holy crap.
This is a strong tornado. Look at the.
That's basically, I'm in the North Carolina flood, even though I live in Tennessee, but it's just going to take a long time to rebuild. I feel like most of the media and stuff has already moved on, right? Everybody's thoughts and prayers, and really like donations and stuff are over. But there's still a lot of local government. There's still a lot of federal and state government involvement. It's just going to take years to rebuild. I still don't have a road. Like we squeeze in and drive this like road that's half washed out. But like the business where I live at a campground, right? I'm the maintenance guy there. It can't open because we can't have the public going back there. I probably really shouldn't be driving over it all the time, but we do to get in and out to our house. We don't have. Well, I don't want to go live with my sisters or something. That's where I live. But they are rebuilding. There is still funding available. FEMA still calls and checks on us all the time. Probably about once every, it's not every month. It's probably about once every 3 weeks or so. FEMA calls and checks in. Still a lot of places that are fucked. It just takes time. Like when they go to like rebuild roads, they look at the most amount of traffic. So where is the most traffic going? Who will get the most use of this road? And because I live on a road that doesn't get hardly any traffic, compared to like a main throughway, then we're at the bottom of the list. So who knows? They're talking about it still might be even a year before they even start on our road.
Freaking vortex, the horizontal vortex.
Stay the fuck away from this thing, guys. I'm not gonna mess with it.
Fox, strong tornado on the ground. Take my feed if you aren't. Take my feed.
Yes, I get so tired of hearing the goddamn boomer argument of like, I did it. I worked for 45 years for blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we get it. Have you ever seen any analysis of how much shit cost back then and how much you made? Yeah, you could buy a 4-bedroom house, raise 3 kids, send them off to fucking college on one person working as a local milkman for fucking $30,000 a year. You can't fucking do that anymore.
Stay the hell away from this thing.
Ari, this is a strong tornado with a horizontal vortex. This thing is at least an EF3. This is not weak. Oh my gosh. Sorry, lightning just struck right next to me. Big time tornado, strong tornado on the ground. If you guys are anywhere close to Lake City, take shelter.
Basically, the problem was we had this huge storm front that came in that was just dumping rain. It was sunny. It wasn't even raining most of the time that I was in the flood. But what happened is I live at the base of a mountain. And when a storm comes up to a mountain, there's a phenomenon where like the winds from the storm hit the mountain and come up, and they hold that storm from passing. So it just sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and dumped water into the river valley. And that was all it took. Like most of the time, like I was out there wading in water, swimming out to fucking get shit, retrieving people's shit, trying to get my shit. Most of the time it was sunny. It was like sunny and fucking 70, 80 degrees. Like it was warm. It was, I don't know. It was crazy.
Immediately.
I don't like being around. I've been around a few tornadoes on the ground. I don't like being around them because it's extremely hard until they get really close. It's extremely hard to tell if they're coming at you. Right? When they're very far off, like you can see like, okay, it doesn't look like it's in front of those trees. Now it's in front of those trees. But without definitive markers that you know how far away they are, it's very hard to tell when it's coming at you, or is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? It's crazy.
This thing's insane.
That's right, Q idiot. I was going to say that.
It is getting larger. It's headed pretty close to my location.
Bill, east of you. Horizontal, huge horizontal vortex.
Oh my gosh, the audible roar on this, guys.
That's so insane.
Ari, I'm going to keep this quick. It's coming very close to me. Horizontal vortices on the side of this thing. There's an audible roar with it right now. This thing is easily EF4 plus. It is rare to see a tornado this strong. It is about a mile and a half southwest of me, heading in my direction. I've only seen this a handful of times in my life. This thing is a very strong tornado. It's going to pass very close to me, very close to the town of Lake City.
Arkansas. That shit's wild, dude. Near Lake City, Arkansas. Arkansas, if we're one of those fancy folk. Honestly, even like talking about this, you couldn't tell it was really coming at him until it got way close. Like, is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? Is it getting closer? Is it getting further away? And then once it is coming at you, what the fuck do you do? This? Like, the fuck do you do? It's almost like by the time you can tell, like, you're fucked, if you don't leave as soon as you see it, if you want to stay around and like look at it, if you don't leave, by the time that you see that you're fucked and I need to leave, it's almost too late. I don't know, it's crazy. Back up, Terry. Yeah, he's just in the motherfucker now.
That transmission. Fox, if you just said something, repeat it.
Hey there, are you okay?
I'm moving towards Black Oak now. This is a very strong tornado.
We've got cows. I want to see if he had damage afterwards. It doesn't look like. It looks like he keeps chasing the storm. The path that tornadoes cut is wild.
Channel 3.
Still doing his thing over there. Very good video. God damn, he's about out in front of it again.
If you can turn around, get east, get east.
If you could turn around, go east.
Turn around, turn around.
In the tractor and trailers.
Okay. So it's coming towards us right now. It's a little fuzzy, but it's fine. It should pass behind us. Not really. I'm getting out ahead of it, trying to stay in a safe spot. Sorry, visual's about to be.
Dude, I was working in Iowa one time, and one popped up so fucking quick that I was on night shift and dead asleep. Me and the guy I used to room with, Luke, we were both knocked out. And I heard somebody knock on our door, like boom, 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 boom. But then they ran. And I thought somebody was like knocking and then running away, like kids or something. But it was like boom, 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 boom. The 3 or 4 hits. And then I heard them run. I heard their footsteps. I thought, what the fuck? So I went over to the door, and as soon as I got to the door, Luke didn't even wake up. As soon as I got to the door, the siren went off, and he was just like, wah, like crazy. And Luke's like, I opened the door, and the siren was loud as hell. There was one just like outside of our parking lot at our hotel. And he's like, what the fuck is that? He's from like Southwest Virginia. We don't get a whole lot of tornadoes around like where I live or where he lives. So I was like, it's a tornado. And by the time I looked at Luke and told him, I said, it's a tornado, I didn't even say siren. I just said it's a tornado and looked back. People had already seen it, I guess. I couldn't see it because I was like limited by like the door I could see. People had already seen it. Because the next thing I saw were people just literally putting their cars in the parking lot on the road and diving out of them. Some people weren't even getting them in park. Like they were diving out of fucking vehicles and running towards our hotel and like a couple more buildings that were there. And like cars were still like rolling without people in them. They were left at the red lights. They were left everywhere. Because when I stepped forward and looked at the door, it was like right fucking there. And it went, this town that we were in, it went right down their fucking main street. Like it went right down their main street. All the way through town, fucked up all the restaurants and shit. The power plant we were working at was like 7 or 8 miles away, so it was fine. But everything in town was fucked, dude. Have a good night.
All I can say right now, Ari, is praise God, I was where I was. There were 2 truck
I think he has areas to mount his camera all the way around. I don't think he's doing 60 miles an hour in reverse.
drivers parked on the road, and I screamed at them to turn around, and they got out of the path of the tornado and are behind me and are safe.
See how he's spinning the camera? I think he's got a dome or something mounted for his camera. Because when it's, when we're looking at the front, it looks like this.
Easily, Ari, without
Dash
doubt, I'd say
cam.
This is high-end EF3, if not low-end EF4. Ari, I'd say it's fairly narrow, no more than 100 yards at this point.
That's pretty intense. All right, this guy. This is the guy I was talking about earlier. Not that Cook guy. I think his name is Zachary Lofts, maybe. This guy does a bunch of the, like, what did it cost back then? What does it cost now? He's a real estate agent as well. I wanted to see some of his, where he compares, like, hold on, I'll find it in a second. The average American worker takes less vacation time than a medieval peasant. Oh, it's got to be good. This is the video I was talking about the other day where I saw he was playing a game of Jenga.
Jenga. The objective of Jenga is to
This is a good analogy here.
take one of the pieces of wood and put it on the top. Now, the goal of the game is to not be the person who makes the entire tower tumble, because once the tower tumbles, the game is over. The point of your turn is to remove one of these wooden bars from anywhere within the structure, primarily below one of the first 3 blocks, taking it out and then placing it on top, allowing for the next person to try. The goal of the game is to take from the bottom and put it on the top. And anybody who plays Jenga knows the inevitable result that will come from it.
Oh, chat, remind me when we're done looking at his videos, Sully put out another good one with the cup guy.
What happens as the game progresses? Well, as the game progresses, the tower becomes much, much less balanced and more likely to tumble. Why? Because throughout the entire game, you are taking from the bottom, taking more and more, piece by piece, until the structure of it all seems to all...
Do you want a revolution? Because this is how you get a revolution. I understand a lot of the working class is brainwashed. And they will repeat anything they hear to make it. I've already proved that older millennial is literally, his sources are meme posts. But when they can't feed their kids en masse, on the edge of foreclosure en masse, can't afford to live en masse,
all be at
Luigi will be the least of your problems.
the top. And once too much is at the top, well, eventually it collapses. The wealth of the bottom 90% is slowly being...
So this is the wealth that was held by the bottom 90%. 33, 30, 28, 25, 23.
Sifted out from the bottom year by year. It's the game of Jenga. The objective of Jenga is Panama Canal and the 2 ports on either side.
BlackRock. The game of greed. Maybe this one? Is this a good
I
one?
think I just figured out exactly why you feel broke. Okay, so it's no secret. Everybody feels like everything is more expensive. But when you look at adjusted income to say, oh, well, if you make 50 grand then, it's worth this much now, the numbers still just don't quite seem to align. See, making just 30 grand in the 1980s, you were getting by, you owned a home, you had multiple cars, and you could raise an American family, you know, not feeling like you're gonna die. I think by
30 grand. 30 grand in the 1980s. In most places, you would own a home and raise a family.
creating this available wealth ratio, which I'm gonna walk you through right now, but I did the math.
I think I've proven what we all feel. Okay, so we're gonna look at the American economy like it's a pie, okay? And the way that we define this pie is we're gonna go the M2 money supply, which is all the money that's available in our economy. Stocks, bonds, savings accounts, it's every dollar in circulation. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach this AWR, which is the available wealth ratio. The way I got the available wealth ratio was by taking what the bottom 90% had available to them and dividing it by the M2 money supply. In simpler terms, the available wealth to Americans in 1985 was 35.1%. What does that mean? It means that the bottom 90% of income earners in America had access to 35.1% of the total economy. Because as of 1985, 64.9%.
By the way, this is the same thing that Gary says from Gary's Economics, that the wealth is being hoarded by the wealthy, and the only way to fix this is some type of, he doesn't say how, right? He leaves that up to politicians, some type of restructuring to get that from the wealthy and get it back to the bottom 50%, and back into the government as well.
Of all of the nation's wealth was held in the top 10%'s hands. Don't look at the adjusted PP, but if you look at 35% available wealth ratio in 1985, that means of the $1.7 trillion in our M2 money supply, according to the Federal Reserve, this was your PPP, which is the purchasing power percentage. So in 1985, the median household income was $27,440. Don't lose me. I'm going to bring us back to the pizza in a minute. If I were to take these numbers and add it into my formula, which is going to give me the total available money supply, that's all the total available money to people like you and I, the bottom 90%, and I divide that by the median household income, what I'm going to get is my PPP, my purchasing power percentage, which happens to in 1985 be 4.64 times 10 to the negative 8th power. In layman's terms, that means if you made the median income in 1985, you made a very, 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 very small percentage of the overall economy, but you still got a slice. And based off all numbers, we can say that that slice was enough to get by and have the American dream here in America. So if I were to take those same numbers for all of these years, I got 1995, 99, 2005, 2012, 2018, and today, which 2024 data, the data when it was last available, I can tell you how much you have to make to feel just as powerful financially as someone making the median household income in 1985. Do you want to know what it is? Okay, so for perspective, back to the pizza, like I promised. There's $1.7 trillion in the economy in 1985 according to our M2 money supply. Lock that number in, tight. Okay, in 2025, it's 21.5 trillion. We don't know through this initial term if we're gonna have any money added, quantitative easing. That number could go up. As of right now, that's the number. That's a large difference. And what's also different is the available wealth. See, back in 1985, 31.1% of the total wealth, this number right here, was available to the bottom 90%. Today, this much larger number that's in our total economy, well, only this percentage is available wealth, the bottom 90%. So if I were to have the same purchasing power percentage as someone in 1985 making a household income of $27,440, with the available wealth at that time being 35% and the M2 money supply being 1.7 trillion, so many numbers. Let me tell you what the number is today. I'm going to tell you this number, and you're going to say, Zach, that's wrong.
So this is to feel like, to get by like you were making $27,000 or let's just say $30,000 in 1985. Okay? Just to feel like you were making $30,000 in 1985.
I think this is too dramatic to be accurate. I've spent 2 hours running these numbers back and forth. I've used 6 different AI platforms to actually verify this math, because when I did it, I assumed I had to be wrong. But I'm not, and it's a great formula, the PPP, the adjusted PPP. The adjusted PP of 2025. If you were making the median household income, which today we have adjusted for inflation, the median household income back in 1985 was $27,440. The median household income today is $79,482. I went through 1989, 1995, 1999, 2005, 2012, 2018, all the way up to today to get the accurate numbers, all from the Census Bureau. You can't argue with these things. So again, median household income back then, $27,440. Today is $79,482. If you wanted to have the same purchase power percentage of the available economy to the bottom 90%, you and I, today you have to make $233,900.
$250K. $230K. If you wanted to have the same ability to purchase things as the median households in 1985, you need to be making $230,000 instead of $30,000. The problem is the median income didn't go to $230,000. It went to $80,000, median household income.
Because there's only 5 trillion of our 21.6 trillion in our economy available to people like you and I. This is not the size, because this would be about 16 to 15 times bigger, but there is a bigger...
And boomers to bitch about like little luxury things. Like we buy like small luxury things to feel better. Like a boomer will bitch about, well, you got that cell phone, don't you? Yeah, but I'm never going to be able to afford a home, you stupid motherfucker. You got a TV in every bedroom. Yeah, they were $67 on Black Friday. I can't help it that your TV was $2,000.
With a smaller percentage, meaning if I wanted to have the same amount of purchasing power as someone in 1985, I have to make a significant amount more, because there is a significantly amount more that is owned by the top 10%. 35% in 1985, and we can see since then it's continued to drop. And this is actually kind of weird if you look at this in 2018.
And not only are they breaking everything, they're telling you to be mad at the wrong people. They're telling you to be mad at 8 trans athletes in the NCAA. They're telling you to be mad at fucking immigrants, right? They're telling you to be mad at the fucking left.
77% of the wealth was held in the top 10%'s hand. The Federal Reserve claims in the last 7 years that number's actually gotten better. I call a little bit of BS, but we have to go off the numbers we have available. So to honestly feel like somebody felt then, you'd have to make this now. Adjusted for inflation and with the available wealth ratio utilized. Available wealth ratio, all of the years with the Census Bureau, the actual math, and then the pies. I spent $36 on 2 drinks at a restaurant the other day. Glass of wine and 1 mixed drink. $36 in Delaware. I think I just figured out exactly.
He's got a bunch of these different videos. That Dave Ramsey one was pretty good. We already watched it. The ballooning cost of the American dream. Get prepared. He had a really good one. I can't remember what the title of it was, or I would just search for it.
Here's the American dream, the cost, the actual income you need to make per year, by year. We have 2012, 2018, and 2024 to afford a home in America. $126,000. This is the pot that is slowly heating up, allowing us Americans to sit here thinking, oh, yeah, everything will get better one day. Oh,
It's Zachary Loft, L-O-F-T.
oh, yeah, I'll just take another president. Oh, we'll use our vote wisely. Oh, one day, 1 decade, 1 millennia, it'll happen at some point. Meanwhile, they got us arguing red this, blue that, liberal this, conservative that. What about this? A pot that is incinerating the middle class from within. Here's the American dream, the cost, the actual income you need.
The fucking world stock market's down. Okay.
Per year, by year, we have 2012, 2018, and 2024 to afford a home in America. $126,000. This is the pot that is
So you need to make $126,000 to be able to afford the typical home in the U.S.
slowly heating up, allowing us Americans to sit here
But in 2018, it was just $70,000.
thinking, oh, yeah, everything will get better one day. Oh, yeah, I'll just take another president. Oh, we'll use our vote wisely. Oh, one day, 1 decade.
It's almost doubled in 6 years. That's crazy, dude.
Millennia, it'll happen at some point. Meanwhile, they got us arguing red this, blue that, liberal this, conservative.
There's an entire generation of people coming up that it seems like to them, unless something drastic changes, they will never, ever, ever be able to afford a home.
How much do you think it costs to get started in America? You think this stuff is cheap? Median mortgage, $2,560. Median childcare, $1,300. Median used car up the lot, $450. Not even talking about gas and insurance for that car. We'll talk about it though. Student debt, $400. Power, $213. Food, $900 for a young family. Phone, $150. Health, $500. Social Security, $450. And I'm not even gonna get my hands on them. And we haven't even gotten to taxes. And when you total that all up, you get $7,568. $7,568 to have a median mortgage, take care of 2 children, have 2 used cars, gas and insurance for that car, 1 bout of student debt, paying for the power, food, and phone of that home, and you have health and Social Security coming out of every single paycheck you get, not even including taxes. You come out to a number of $7,568 a month. In case you were wondering, that's $90,816 a year. Let me paint you a picture. You walk into a property and the starter price point in your area, let's call it $300,000. You have a $2,000 mortgage. Now you have to get 2 used cars for both you and your spouse to be able to get to your jobs. One of you had to get a degree and now have student debt that you have to pay every single month because of that career. You also have 2 young kids. You can't both stay home, so you have to have childcare for those 2 kids, as well as food, formula, and diapers for each of them. You have to have food, you have to keep the power on, and you frankly have to have phones and Wi-Fi to even get by in today's world. And if you follow those same exact metrics that I just told you about, you're going to be paying $7,568 a month. So what does that mean for saving? What does that mean for investing? What does that mean for getting the nest egg put to the side? What happens when I read that $2,500 median mortgage and you're thinking to yourself, I'm paying more than that in rent. I'm not even getting equity. The median household income in America in 2024 was $74,580. $74,580. The cost to get started in America, $90,000.
Yeah, they want to point. They love to point at poorer people. They love to point at poorer people. I don't know. I live in a poor area. Like everybody around, most people around here are poor, or on the very bottom, lower half of income, right? And I've never seen them get mad at fucking billionaires doing billionaire things, but they are mad as fuck. They find out somebody's on food stamps.
The median amount a family makes in America, $74,500. I'm gonna say it again. The median amount it takes to get started in America is $90,000. The median amount that you make as a family in America is $74,500. That's $14,500 short The median family, that means normal, by the way. That means normal. That's why we use that number. The median family doesn't make the normal amount to start a family.
Yeah, ours has really changed since COVID. So we probably, a starter home around here that's like a fixer-upper or something was probably like around, I don't know, like 130, 150. Now they're well over 200,000. That's what happened when we were leaving our last house and we were looking for a place. And like overnight, dude, people were calling. Stuff wasn't even making it to listing. People were paying asking plus $10,000 on top of it. Like it was insane. And stuff was disappearing the moment it was listed. I'm almost positive that real estate agents had deals to where they had to legally list it or whatever, but it was already sold before it was even listed because it could pop up 1 second ago and I could call and they would tell me it's sold. Already had an offer. Already gone. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Math is severely not mathing there. What are the long-term effects of people not being able to start families, of people not being able to progress in their career, people not being able to get out of bed because they feel crippled by how low their accounts are, by how bills are piling up, by how their credit score's jacked up, by their parents still think that they're lazy and not working hard enough, even though they make 80 grand a year, even though they did the thing right and they went up the corporate ladder and they're like, rung by rung, I'll do this thing called America. And then you start to realize you're looking around like, wait, well, shit, I'm out of rungs. You're left there feeling like, well, what do I do now? I'm paying my $2,000 plus a month. I got my kids that are being raised in this country. I have my student debt. I got my degree. Why am I not making as much? Everything's getting more expensive. Money's printed without my say-so. And frankly, no matter who I vote for, the things at the top are going to keep happening.
Like, I know union wages are decent, but could you imagine like working in like an automobile factory every day, slaving away for fucking, say you've been there 8, 10, 12 years or whatever, and you can't afford the thing that you're fucking making every goddamn day? Like, you can't even afford to buy one.
Regardless, is this going to keep perpetuating? Are we going to see 2035 be even worse? Will it be $120,000, $140,000, $180,000 to get by? Guys, I'm talking about the flat income being made versus the flat the flat expenses being paid. I messed up there, so let me say it again. Income versus expenses. How much it costs to get started in America.
So it costs around roughly $90,000 to get started in America, to kick everything off. But the average household income is only $75,000.
Versus what the median American is making. And if you're asking, Zach, are you overreacting? Were these numbers crisscrossed the whole time? No, they weren't. In 2018, people made a $3,000 surplus based off those two metrics. The median cost of everything I just mentioned, median home, cars, gas and insurance in those cars, 2 kids in childcare, 1 bout of student debt, power, food, phone, all that. Health insurance, taxes insurance, there was a $3,000 surplus. In 1998, a $7,000 surplus, and the $7,000 wasn't even worth as much. It's telling, if you look through the years, how much more expensive it's slowly gotten, and they keep feeding you this number, guys. You're being propagandized, and let me tell you right now how you're being propagandized financially. You turn on the news, you look at a report, and you see inflation, and it says 3%. It says 2.5%. It says 7%.
You're retarded. First of all, inflation's not over. Second of all, it's not a tax on corporations. Corporations never pay those. They pass them on to consumers.
And you're being told a number.
It's a tax on the populace.
Being built on another number. See, the way inflation works is they tell you, and I'll draw this out for you in another video, but the way inflation works is they tell you how much more it costs the next year.
We have a tax on corporations. We could just raise the corporate tax rate. Wouldn't that be great?
Listen, this is huge. The inflation number they're giving you is based off the last inflation number they gave you. If a home has, let's say, on a report from 2023 to 2024, 3.2% inflation, what that means is the value of the median home in America is 3.2% higher than it was. The Federal Reserve wants to get this number below 2%. Below 2%. Now, if that happened, that means things are going up in cost less, not that costs are coming down. See, you're fed an inflation number that is built on what has already been built. See, from 2022 to 2023, the inflation was about, I'm going to make up a number here, don't vet me, 6.5%. 2021 to 2022, it was 8.5%. 2020 to 2021, it might have been 8.5%, 10%. Again, the problem is over 5 years, it's been 40%. Food is up 60%, clothing up 35%, power up over 100% in some areas, insurance up over 100% in some areas, and you're just told to work harder. I'm looking at the numbers. Working harder doesn't do it. If you are a teacher in America and you want to buy a home, I hope you're married to 2 other teachers. If you're a trades worker, working with your hands.
2 other teachers.
Man, not like this guy. Like
I hope you're married to a commune of teachers.
Man,
and you're making 80.
Oh, what's up, Austin?
Gotta keep grinding, brother. And if you're a serviceman, servicewoman, going overseas and coming back with a nest egg, I hope you also find a pot of gold in your basement, because unless you're married to another service member with a nest egg, you're probably not buying a house. Numbers don't lie. It is harder than it's ever been to get started with a young family in America. In 2025, those numbers more than likely will get more dramatic unless anything is done. In 2026, those numbers more.
When have you ever seen a corporation say, oh, our prices went up, we're just going to eat that price so we don't pass them on to our customers? We're just going to take care of that ourselves. We take that right out of our profit.
Unless inflation is quelled, these numbers in 2027 will get to the point where we're looking at the extinction of the lower to middle class. So I advise every single one of you, know this information. Hit follow or favorite if you want to watch this again to know the information. It's not you. I say that because it's not you. You're being blamed. You have to go to sleep at night thinking, I'm not worth it. You're worth it. You can do it. You're doing great. I love you. I care about you. And I got to tell you right now, I know it feels tough. I know you're waking up like, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to keep playing the game. Why do I keep having to earn this fancy green paper to pay to pedophiles? I get it. I get it. I get it.
I'd like an answer to my question. Do you have to use the R slur? Yeah, I kind of do. Don't be retarded about it.
I just want to give you a virtual hug. I'm not here to say, oh, we do this. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to lead the revolution.
120K 6 years ago. They're all, don't you? Yeah, that makes sense. That's the way it is here. That's probably that market is probably like our market.
I'm here to tell you right now, it's okay. You're seen. It's going to get better if voices tether and produce a message that's consistent. And,
love you, bye.
I said together and tether.
Hope you catch your flight.
And if it's forever, that's a terrible rhyme. I love you guys. The numbers don't lie. It's not getting easier unless we make a change. How much do you think it costs to get?
Our cups guy, Sully Dog, is that his name?
To let us choose which path to take. And I first thought of some sort of turntable like this, which lets you rotate around a center point and choose.
Look out, canceled.
When a politician tells you they're giving a tax cut, they're absolutely giving it to the rich people, and I can prove it. In the last 60 years, the top 1% have managed to lower their taxes by 52%, while the middle-class guy has gone up by 10. It's a fact. You can prove it to yourself. When they say tax cuts, it sounds good, but it's only going in one direction. The current tax plan that we're on is a 2017 jobs and tax cut, which passed Congress by a vote, 227 yays from the Republican side of the aisle, and 205 nays on the Democratic side.
We still have people like, I couldn't survive under Biden's tax plan. Oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Why? The fear of the $4.5 trillion deficit that's being created over the next 10 years that we know is going to this. People making over $400,000 receive a large portion of this. $4.5 trillion, remember that, because this cup symbolizes $100 billion. And in front of me, I have 12 of them, which is $1.2 trillion, which is the amount of money it costs for the Infrastructure Act, for all of us.
This is how much it costs for the entire Infrastructure Act.
Unbelievably, they're willing to create a $4.5 trillion deficit, but they will vote no on $1.2 trillion for all of us to fix the roads. Moving on.
By the way, he's got all these acts stacked up over here at the bottom of this triangle. He'll say it in a minute. All the red cups are how much more it costs for the tax cuts. They wanted to get rid of everything in the bottom of this triangle over here. All Republicans voted against. Said it was too expensive. We couldn't afford it. We couldn't do it. But this entire red triangle here are the tax cuts they're willing to hand out.
I have 10 blue cups under here, which is $1 trillion.
Oh, shit.
When a politician
I'll catch back up. Sorry.
A tax cut. Why? The fear of the $4.5 trillion deficit that's being created over the dollars. And in front of me, I have 12 of them, which is $1.2 trillion, $5 trillion deficit, but they will vote no on $1.2 trillion for all of us to fix the roads. Moving on. I have 10 blue cups under here, which is $1 trillion. The Inflation Reduction Act, which clearly worked as our inflation dropped faster than any other industrial nation
in the world.
No, on the $1 trillion. $300 billion Chips and Science Act, investing in Silicon Valley while
couldn't afford that. Republicans said we couldn't afford that. That was going to doom us. We couldn't afford any of these programs, even though most of them worked.
Hard no, 100% can't do that. Over here, PACT Act, $700 billion to fund disability for our veterans. And unbelievably, even that, 174 of them, or 84% of their Congress voted no, and the argument doesn't hold any water. A 4.5.
So, again, see these cups over here? That is all the programs that Biden wanted to put in that Republicans voted no against. That actually helped. Like we did inflation better than the rest of the fucking world. Okay? Even though it's bad, I'm not saying it was good. I'm not saying it was awesome. I'm not saying it was great to pay more for shit. We still did better after COVID than the rest of the world. But they're completely okay with this gigantic tax break.
$1 trillion deficit is everything from this black cup down. And as you can see, they will tell us we can't vote for that. Where's the money going to come from? What else is in the bill? It's too long. Same excuse every single time on all 4 bills. But when it comes time to the tax cut, bam, they're in. This used to be a two-party problem, but they've absolutely all consolidated over here. Republicans, the Tea Party squatters that came into your house never left, and they have expanded. And
one of those is the PACT Act for veterans, dude. For veterans who are all fucked up from being overseas in the burn pits, including the water at like Camp Lejeune and shit. The PACT Act. Nope, don't have the money for it. Sorry, guys.
you have to get back on the same page with us because we cannot keep
4.7 trillion in tax breaks to the wealthy. You got it.
Giving tax cuts to rich people. Above this black line is the new tax cuts they're proposing. With everything that's going on in the world, with all the stock market crashing, all of the chaos, you bet your ass they're focused on only one thing, and that's a tax cut. That's it. It's all they want. The argument simply does not hold up. And I know you're supremely confident in everything that they have told you because you're a very good person and you're loyal. But your party is gone. You have to start voting with us. You have to encourage your representatives to vote with us because we have to stop these tax cuts and we have to stop the tariffs. We have to. The argument, you cannot vote no on the people and vote yes for the rich people. It's ridiculous. $11.2 trillion, come on. I hope you learned something. I hope this math helps you out. Remember, hope you have a great day, and I'm always rooting for you. When a politician tells
he's got another one with these same cups.
Serious here. I got 60 years of taxes behind me. 60 years ago, richest people in the nation were paying at a rate of 77%.
77%. That's 60 years ago.
77 cups, now down to 37%.
Why don't we have money to fund anything? Why does the deficit keep growing? Why are we so fucking broke that we have to stop food deliveries from food banks that feed the hungry? Our local food bank, expecting a delivery, was told, nope, that's canceled. We can't afford it from the federal government. But somehow, we're going to finance these tax cuts.
You can see with your own eyes the pyramid is significantly smaller. They used to pay at a rate of 45%. They are now paying at a rate of 9%. That is the effect.
That's the effective tax rate. So the yellow and black cups together are what they're taxed at. Okay? The yellow cups by themselves are the effective tax rate, what they actually pay when they get all their deductions and write-offs and shit. 45% to 9%.
Effective tax
or 37 to 9. I'm sorry. 37% to 9.
Rate after all of their deductions. 9%. When they say tax cuts, they're talking about them. Because the middle...
Now, this is you, the middle class. Your full tax rate versus your effective tax rate. Even your effective tax rate went up.
The middle class guy has had a tax increase from 20% to 22%. In fact, the middle class guy is paying an effective tax rate of 15% while they're paying 9%. We all know we're getting screwed. Everybody knows. Now, let's see how it's happening because I'm going to expose a scam to you. Stay with me. In 2022, the Infrastructure Act passed Congress to fix all of our bridges and roads. We all know that we needed it. And in fact, interest rates were historically low, so it made...
This was the time to do the Infrastructure Act. When interest rates are historically low, that's when we want to be rebuilding our infrastructure.
It made sense to invest in America. Let's look at the scoreboard. We got 221 yays, 210 nays. And once again, the entire Democratic Party voted for the people, while virtually almost the entire Republican Party voted against the people before it went to the Senate. Why? Same excuse all the time. We can't afford it. Who's going to pay for that? It's too expensive. Remember that. This is $100 billion. This can represents $100 billion, and on the bottom here I have 12 of them, which represents $1.2 trillion, which was the amount of money to fund that project. let alone if you think about all the hard hat jobs that came out of that, all the good high paying union jobs. Infrastructure is exactly what we needed when the interest rates were low. They don't seem to understand that. I can prove it. Next up, Inflation Reduction Act. 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, $1 trillion used in a variety of ways, everything from helping our seniors with their prescription drug copays going from $6,000 to $2,000. I know you're enjoying that now, seniors, because times are tough. Giving money to states, which resulted in multiple ways that they can combat inflation and even resulted in raises for many civil servants. I personally know of teachers that got raises. Well, let's see if they voted for the right party. Take a look at the scoreboard. 220 yeas to 213 nays for a project that clearly worked because our inflation dropped exponentially quicker than the rest of the world. And once again, we have the same reasoning. Can't afford it, it's too expensive, the bill's too long, how are we gonna pay for it? Well, let's add it to our pyramid. This is $100 billion, and I have 10 orange cans in the pyramid symbolizing the $1 trillion for the Inflation Reduction Act while interest rates are at lows. Next up, Chips and Science. Chips and Science Act 2022, need an investment into Silicon Valley while interest rates are low. It's literally what we're talking about right now. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. 215 yays to 217 nays. Same reason again. It's too expensive. We can't afford it. How are we going to do that? Although right now during tariff talk, this is the most important thing. We need to make these chips here. This is $100 billion. Over here, these 3 red cans symbolize the $300 billion that is in the Chips and Science Act that will make us more competitive in the world. Next up, the PACT Act. We're entering the home stretch.
The PACT Act. If we can't fund the veterans we fucked up overseas, we cannot give tax cuts to someone who just happens to be a billionaire.
The PACT Act 2022, giving veterans a benefit of $1,000 to $3,800 a month. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. House of Representatives, before it went to the Senate, 256 yays, 174 nays. Once again,
all red on the nose.
Standing up for the people. 174, 84% of the Republican Congress voted no. Why? Same reason always. Can't afford it. What type of spending it's going to be. How long it's going to go on. Is there a sunset? Same reason every time. I am sorry to tell you, Republicans, but you have lost your party. It doesn't exist anymore. I can prove it to you. $100 billion in my pyramid with all of the other bills for the people. Now we will look at the tax cut from 2017 to see how they voted. All right, I'm going to show you where the scam lives. Let's bring it home. In 2017, the Republican Congress voted 227 yays to 205 nays
for Trump's tax cut.
227 yes votes to give tax breaks to people making over $400,000. And I've already established that when they say tax cuts, they're not talking about you. They're talking about them. They manipulate the tax code to pull the money out of the Treasury. 227 yes votes results in a $4.5 trillion deficit in the next 10 years. $4.5 trillion, and that is everything below this blue line. There are 45.
Look at this pyramid. This was everything that Joe Biden financed through those major spending bills compared to just their tax cuts that they approved unanimously.
Cans below that blue line, and sadly, as you can see, the tax cut is more money than Chips and Science, PACT Act, Infrastructure Act, and Inflation Reduction Act combined. They give the illusion
didn't have money for any of that.
That they're being fiscally responsible and we can't pay for this and how are we going to pay for that? And it's too much money. This bill is too long. I can't read it. While giving tax cuts to rich people. They want another $11.2 trillion for these guys. You're going to hear about it. And now that I've exposed the scam, I want you to listen because you're going to see what I'm talking about. They will do anything for this amount of money. They will tell you anything you want to hear. CRT, DEI, Gulf America. They will distract you in every way possible. And we're not falling for the scam. We will not allow you to distract us anymore because we're going to stay solely focused on the fact that they are giving rich people money. And I want to be abundantly clear.
Most people, even now that they toss around the idea that the tariffs are going to get people that make below $150K a year are going to pay no taxes. That's just this idea they're ballparking and that people are claiming is going to happen with tariffs. Even if that were true. Even if that were true. If you got all your money and paid zero fucking taxes, you still couldn't keep up with the cost of living. We just established that. To have the same purchasing power as someone in 1985 making $30K, you have to make $230K.
We as Democrats believe and can show that the former Republican Party's job is now to give rich people money. You can tell me I'm lying. You can act like I'm giving you propaganda. This is math. These are easily...
If trickle-down economics work, where the fuck is the trickle? Where is it? Somebody stopped it along the way, put a dam up or some shit.
verifiable facts. Until then, cups and cans talk and bullshit walks. I don't know what you're going to do about this. You don't really have a moral argument.
There was one more that he did. Okay, this is the last one I'll watch of his.
Veterans, we're going to the scoreboard tonight to make it.
This one I shared and said everybody should watch it. I think I've even played it on the show before. This is literally just about the veterans and the PACT Act. That this whole demonstration is about the PACT Act. Sully Dog.
Going to the scoreboard tonight.
DAWG. SULLY DAWG. Sully Dog.
Make it easy for you. In 2022, the most important piece of legislation for veterans was passed, the PACT Act. Promise to address Comprehensive Toxins Act. It's going to give roughly 6.5 million combat veterans a monthly payment of $1,000 to $3,800 a month for life, getting over 1 million veterans off the streets. But I am not so sure that veterans actually understand what happened. So we're going to take a look at the scoreboard. In 2022, when the act passed Congress, it voted on the House of Representatives before it went to the Senate. It passed by a vote of 256 yeas and 174 nays. And I would like you to take a very good look at that, veterans, because your eyes are not deceiving you. Every single member of the Democratic Party voted for your interest, and 174 members of what we used to call the Republican Party voted against your interest. This may be news to many of you. I know many of you may not think that that's the case because your buddies tell you that that's not the case, but the facts are 84% of the Republican Party voted against that benefit. In here, we got Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. He hasn't done anything for you. Jim Jordan's in here. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Brian Donalds, all of the talking pieces. Their job is to create chaos, so you don't even look to see what they voted. I'm not even sure if you knew if you voted for them or not. If you voted for a Republican in the House of Representatives in the last election, you're a veteran, you got an 84% chance that you voted for somebody who voted against you. That cannot happen anymore. We have special elections coming.
But again, they said, we can't afford it. We don't know what's in it. This is just unlimited spending, and we don't know what's going to happen. We can't afford it, right? Compared to, what are all these gold cups?
Veterans in heavy veteran areas, there's only one vote. The Democrats are the only party who has been protecting the veterans for the last decade. It used to be pretty even split. These guys, their only job now.
If you go back and look historically over stuff for veterans or service members or whatever, it did used to be pretty evenly split. Now they're the party of we can't afford it. But anytime, and they're also the party of why are we sending money to this? We've got homeless veterans. But every fucking time a veteran bill comes up, they all say we can't afford it and vote against it.
In fact, their only job, and you can prove it through legislation, is to pass tax cuts.
It did used to be split. It did used to be split. They'd be red and blue on both sides of and decent arguments about, well, this could get out of hand and I just want some amendments to it, blah, blah, blah. Now it is, we can't afford it unless the top 10% is getting tax cuts, then we can afford anything.
Confirm judges. That's it. This is the tax cut over here that they're proposing. It's 112 cups, which
this is the proposed tax cut that they're talking about implementing because the 2017 tax cut's about to expire. All these green cuts, let me zoom in. These green cups at the bottom are the entire PACT Act that all these Republicans voted against that said we couldn't afford. These green cups. We can't afford it. Even now, there's some Republicans talking about undoing the PACT Act. These yellow cups are the tax cuts they are proposing this year. Look how small the PACT Act is compared to the tax cuts they're proposing this year. Donald Trump likes to talk about the most prosperous time in history, right? The most prosperous time in history for the middle class was when the fucking top tax rate was goddamn high.
Which symbolizes $11.2 trillion worth of tax cuts that cannot happen. $11.2 trillion worth of tax cuts.
Yeah.
The ups on the bottom are the 700
A lot of veterans get caught up in fucking social stuff issues.
billion that it would take to fund the PACT Act in the same amount of time. I can't make this up. I got 174 people who will not vote for your 7 green cups, but the same 174 people are absolutely bet your house, bet your kids' college education they're going to vote for this $11.2 trillion tax cut. Mind-blowing. Once you see the scam, you can't unsee it. Every single thing.
It is true. I do love the way he visualizes this. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you compare the PACT Act that they all voted against to proposed tax cuts, there's no reckoning to this. They'll try to say, oh, they hit a bunch of stuff in the bill. It's all for veterans, dude. Well, they're hiring new people. Yeah, we were at war for 20 goddamn years, 20 plus years with 2 different countries. There's a lot of fucked up people that are going to need to see a doctor.
That they do in their chaos is always about that.
I even have PACT Act claims, and nowhere near the worst part of it.
Veterans are only being protected by one party. This week, Senator Blumenthal in the Senate offered a very simple amendment that would protect these benefits through all this chaos, guaranteeing that they get funded while DOGE and all these cuts happen. And all 52 senators voted no, every one of them. Then you throw in the fact that they want to fire another 300,000 employees at the VA. Like, if your application isn't in or if your application isn't processed, how are you going to get your money? There has to come a time where you stop listening to your buddies and you start looking at who's voting for you. Facts matter. Because in the classroom, cups and cans talk and bullshit walks. Prove me wrong. Show me some legislation that the Republicans have put on that gives money to military families that need it. Show me. Until then, I hope you had a good day. I hope you have a great night. And remember, I'm always rooting for you.
He does a good job of visualizing this. A very good job. Now, somebody asked, what do we do? It's really hard. So you know the reasons that we can't get term limits passed, right? It's because the people that the term limits would apply to are the people who have to pass it, right? They don't want term limits. If they wanted term limits, we'd have term limits. So when we look at taxing the wealthy, the people that would have to pass that are the wealthy, or their donors are the wealthy, or the people who fund their campaigns are the wealthy. The people who lobby them are the wealthy. So if we go over to Gary Economics, he's been predicting almost all of this for years. His name is Gary Stevenson. He is an economist. He used to work for a bunch of different hedge funds and investment groups and all this shit. He has the plan. He knows what the plan is. We have to tax the wealthy at a higher rate to get the amount of money that they are fucking storing back to the middle class and the government. He has a video that's pretty long. We got time to watch it if you guys are actually interested in this. I actually had it open for a long time, but I think I've already closed it. Yeah, it's not that far back. It might be this one. Let's see.
But
both Donald Trump and Labour are presiding.
Oh, this is just a minute long.
This is not a left-right issue. This
I'll
is a
find it.
poverty
Give me just a second.
This is going to happen in every country, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. Why are we not talking about inequality as the cause for poverty? Make it common sense. Of course it's inequality. Of course it's inequality. Say it again and again. Share it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with anyone who is any position of power. You know, call into the call-in shows. Make...
Okay, here it is.
Welcome back to Gary's Economics. Today, we are finally going to explain how we can stop the economy from collapsing. Okay, so in the last couple of months, I've been on tour. I've been up and down the country a couple of times. We've had a massive press campaign, so I've been all over the TV, radio, the internet, basically explaining that the economy is collapsing, that it will continue to collapse, and that ordinary families will be driven into poverty, that our kids and our grandkids won't be able to afford homes and financial security. And
I think that was part of the plan. Like, we all knew it was going to be bad, but he's got to get it bad quick. Like, he's got to get all his shit as quickly as he can.
And we've been getting a lot of press, and that has obviously been basically worrying a lot of people. People should be worried because this is happening. And people are asking me, okay, Gary, what can we do? How can we stop that? And I've spent quite a lot of time explaining the problem, but perhaps not so much explaining what we can do to stop the problem. So today, what I'm going to try my best to do is explain really clearly, as much as possible from the ground up, how I think we can stop this economic collapse from happening. All right, so
the fact that our own president, when talking down to us about how he's going to help us, doesn't realize that everybody uses the word groceries every day should be the biggest red flag in the fucking world. It's an old-fashioned word. I don't think people use it anymore. I don't think you use it, because you have somebody that goes out and buys and fixes and serves you. Is there anybody in chat that doesn't say the word groceries?
The very first thing we need to do is just recap very quickly what the economic problem actually is in its most basic terms, and I'm going to try to explain that in a simple diagram, which I'm going to draw here. Okay, so we've got these four groups in society. We've got the working class, we've got the middle class, we've got the government, and we've got the rich.
Check it out.
Now, for most of history and
working class, middle class, government, and rich.
In most of the world today, pretty much all of the wealth in society, the land, the property, the natural resources, the businesses, are owned by the rich. But for a period of time after the Second World War, we had a situation where basically all of these groups held a decent amount of wealth. So in my parents' generation, it was normal for even working class families to have a pension and own their own property, for example. So we had a period where all of these groups had a decent amount of wealth.
You remember how the right fear-mongered that the left wanted you'll own nothing and be happy? And they just kept repeating that. That's what they're doing right now, right? That's what they're doing right now. The richest man in the world is working with the most powerful man in the world to make sure that they fucking own everything and you own nothing.
But the rich had more, and especially after their taxes were cut in the 80s, they started to accumulate more and more. And that meant that when other groups in society wanted to access this wealth, wanted to use this wealth, wanted to use housing, property, natural resources, buildings, they had to pay rents, profits, dividends to the rich. And wealth started to flow away from these other groups and towards the rich. And these flows really started to increase, especially during the 2008 crisis and during the COVID crisis. And it led to a situation where really there was very large-scale transfer of wealth, and that is still ongoing. And the end result was that
And the be happy part isn't even a lie. They are so fucking excited that the market's crashing. They are so fucking excited that they can't afford fucking housing. They are so like the MAGA people are fucking, they are happy.
Working class lost pretty much all their wealth and got into a bit of debt as well. The government is now massively in negative wealth, so they've only got debt. And the middle class, they kept some of their wealth, but not so much. And the wealth of the rich just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, especially during COVID. What this meant was, because these groups of society who traditionally are the big...
So when the wealth started accumulating more of this, the wealthy started accumulating more of the wealth, whenever you need to access wealth, like you need a loan or debt or whatever, you're actually transferring some of your money to them through fees and interest and everything else, right? You're paying them to use what they own, and they're not passing it down. They're not trickling it down. They're just holding it.
spenders in terms of proportion of their wealth were losing their wealth. Spending fell, wages fell, and because these guys have much more wealth now and these guys have less, these transfer payments which you have to make to use wealth, access resources, went up because you've got less resources now, they've got more, so you need to pay to use a greater amount of resources. So these flows increased, and now we're in a situation where basically these groups are basically wiped out. The working class has basically nothing left. These guys already live in increasingly desperate poverty. The government is like totally bankrupted. They're out. And the middle class has just this little bit left which they're hanging on to, but it's gradually being sucked out, and before long they will be gone too. And then you end up in this situation where basically the rich own everything, you have no middle class, nobody else owns anything, and an economy like that looks like Nigeria, looks like India, looks like Brazil, and basically you have very broad poverty. If you want to fix this, you need to get wealth flowing back in the other direction. And there are different ways to do this. In theory, you can do it without taxes, and if you are interested in non-tax solutions for getting ordinary families their wealth back, we have a video called The Wealth Time Limit, which I did years ago. But realistically, I think your only realistic hope of getting the wealth back in the working class, back in the middle class, getting wealth to flow away from the rich, is, to quote the Dutch historian Rutger Bregman, taxes, taxes, taxes. I do really think this is the only way. I know it's difficult because the rich will oppose it, but I think unless we can get much higher levels of tax on the rich, I don't think there is any way we can get that wealth back to working class and middle class families. So if we're talking about tax, I always think when we are discussing the question of how can we tax the rich more, tax working families less, get wealth flowing back to working class families, I always think it's really, really helpful to break that question of tax down into two completely separate questions. Question one are what specific changes do we want in the tax system? And question two, how do we make those changes happen? And the reason why I think it's really important to separate them is because these are really just two completely separate questions. This number one is a question of, really, it's a technical question. It's a kind of it's a tax advisor's, it's a tax planner's question. It's a technical economics question. And number two is a question of power. It's a question of how do we force these things. And the reason why I think it's really, really important to separate them is because we tend to focus very, very much on this question one, especially when we are talking to people like me who are economists. We want to say, okay, well, what are the changes in the tax system?
This happens a lot of the time. A lot of times it'll be a revolution or an uprising or something like that. But we need to get our tax rates back up. We have to.
Change in the tax system. And I think this is perhaps a little bit naive to the fact that basically at the moment we are losing this debate for question two, which is at the moment we're not getting any taxes at all. We are increasingly seeing changes in the tax system which tax rich people less, which tax working people more. That is true even in countries that have centre-left governments who you might think would be more supportive of poorer people. It's true here in the UK where we have a Labour government. It was true under Joe Biden. We are seeing, even under governments that are supposed to be left-wing, the inability to raise taxes at all. So I think it's really important to recognise that these two things are separate, because we can often end up in a situation where somebody like me is trying to make a very strong case for the fact that if we don't change the tax system, we will see basically a collapse of society. And somebody who perhaps is rich or is funded by the rich will come in and say, aha, but what specific changes do you want to make? And they will ask you to sort of sit down and carefully plan a brand new tax system right there in front of them. And then they will say, oh, well, this specific problem is wrong and this is not going to work. Listen, I am not particularly passionate about the specific form of tax that we take. I'm aware that it is really, really important that this is carefully designed to hit the richest rather than the middle class. I'm totally aware of this problem, and I'm aware that different forms of taxes will have different problems, and I'm aware that we need to be really, really careful about how we plan it, how we design it. But the truth is, the most important thing is that we get a change, and there are a number of forms that change could take. I campaign for wealth taxes. Some people campaign for equalising capital gains with income tax. Some people talk about closing down the loopholes that very rich families use to pay zero taxes. These are all good plans, but I don't think we should let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The truth is, we are losing this battle for question two. And if we lose this battle for question two, then your family will be bankrupted. So I came into this game, as an economist who thought a lot about question one, and I kind of became a campaigner, a YouTuber. I literally taught myself how to write a book.
A very, 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 very small percentage would leave.
because I could see we were going to lose question 2. So I am going to focus for the rest of this video on question 2. The only thing I will say about question 1 is I think we need to deal with the fact that some people say there's no point trying to tax the rich because reducing inequality is impossible. And the answer to that is 100% it is possible, because we did it in the 20th century. In the beginning of the 20th century, inequality in this country, across Europe, across the United States was extremely high, and ordinary families like yours and mine lived in desperate poverty. And over the course of the 20th century, we reduced wealth inequality really significantly. That got wealth into the hands of ordinary families, and it led to a really significant increases in living standards, which meant that our parents and grandparents lived much, much better lives than people in the early 20th century did. So for now, we need to focus on getting some form of change, because if we spend all of our time arguing about the specific form of the change, we won't get anything at all. There's no point arguing about battle tactics until you have an army. So let's talk about how can we force these politicians to give us the things that we need. All right, so I, as most of you will know if you've been watching this channel, was an economist, mathematician and a trader. I worked as a trader from 2008 to 2014. I made a lot of money by recognizing basically exactly...
Yeah, they're either going to substantially downgrade the way they live in a worse country, or they're probably going to end up paying more taxes.
The diagram I showed you at the beginning of the video, which was that wealth was and still is being drained out of the middle class, out of the working class, accumulated by the very rich. That was going to suck spending power out of the economy, and that was going to impoverish most ordinary families. I bet on that, and I was very successful betting that the economy would collapse, and I made a lot of money on that. And I quit trading in 2014. I was living in Tokyo at the time, and I came back to London basically with this conviction that I was right in this relatively simple economic understanding that we would see continued further and further and further worsening of living standards. And I didn't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. I assume you don't want that to happen, because it will mean poverty for you and your kids. And my plan was basically simply to come back to London and show people this truth. And I've been spending basically those nearly 11 years now, since I came back, trying to figure out how can we actually stop this crisis from happening. And my plan has always been, really relatively simply, this crisis will impoverish 70, 80, 90% of the population here in the UK, in the US, in Australia, in Europe, wherever you're watching. And you're seeing that happening. You are seeing larger and larger percentages of the population being impoverished. And it doesn't make sense for the public to accept that. So all we need to do is show them what's happening, make it clear to them what's happening, and they will reject it, basically. But
that's a fear-mongering tactic. They'll always say, well, if you tax the rich, they'll just fucking leave here, and they'll never come back, and they'll take all their money with them. They can afford to leave here. It's just fear-mongering. It doesn't show a substantial flight from a country for taxing people.
7 years now, and we haven't achieved it yet. So I would like to explain basically how my thinking has developed and refined into trying to figure out a way that we can really effectively stop it. So when I first came back, the first place I went to was I worked for an economics think tank in London called the New Economics Foundation. I volunteered there for about 6 months. This is a progressive economics think tank in London. I kind of figured that these would be the guys who would help you sort of introduce new economics ideas into society. Their name was literally the New Economics.
We shouldn't, as much revenue as is generated, as much wealth is generated in the United States, we should not be behind on any fucking thing. Like, I hate when people argue like, oh, well, we're doing our best. No, we should be doing the best, dude. The best. We shouldn't have people that are fucking starving to death and fucking homeless and kids that are malnourished and can't get fucking food, or have a medical bill that ruins your fucking life. Like,
Foundation. And I volunteered there for 6 months. I met a lot of nice people. Some of them I'm still friends with now. But I basically became convinced that they didn't really have the capacity to really push this new idea out. There was very, very little appetite for ideas on inequality. They needed to get funding for all of their individual projects, and they could get a lot of funding for global warming stuff and kind of identity politics stuff, but there was basically nobody funding wealth inequality stuff. The space was quite middle class, so in many cases there were people who were not themselves being directly hurt. I make the point a lot on this channel, and I think this is important to recognize. Crises of inequality, they impoverish 90%.
Yes, we could live in almost a near utopia. We should be.
of the population, but they make like 1-2% of the population absolutely really bloody rich, and these guys, they benefit from it. And there's another sort of 3-4% below that are pretty well protected, and I sort of found in that think tank space a lot of these protected people basically, and unfortunately, whilst they are in many cases very well meaning, I didn't see any chance of getting change.
But instead, they're talking about like within this decade that we're going to have the first trillionaires. We're going to have the first trillionaires in the U.S. in this decade, instead of everybody being able to fucking live.
Essentially from that think tank space. So I went then to university. I did a 2-year economics masters at Oxford, and you could probably imagine if the think tank space was quite rich and quite upper middle class, the Oxford University was unbelievably rich and middle class. And you know, good luck to anyone who's trying to make change in academia, and we do need people in those spaces. I became pretty convinced that academia was almost completely a dead end at the moment. I think, you know, we've made videos on this. I think the situation of university, especially elite university academic economics, is just, if the situation wasn't so serious, it would be quite funny, really. You've got a lot of very smart kids like locked in tiny windowless rooms doing unbelievably complicated mathematics with absolutely no idea what's happening in the world. So I don't think that we're going to make change from those spaces. I eventually decided to try and move into the media space. I made that space in early 2020. And
he was just on Piers Morgan a couple of days ago.
It was basically, you know, I've spent 5-6 years.
So the golden age that Trump talks about is actually referred to as the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age, gilded means a thin coat of golds over a useless metal, lead or some shit, right? That's what the Gilded Age means. Like it appears like people are doing really good and really wealthy and fancy and gold plated, but the workforce, the underlying population, the rest of the world or the rest of that country is in absolute fucking poverty. Like, it's so funny when he keeps saying, oh, the richest we've ever been was back during the Gilded Age of America. And really, it was for robber barons and people who had all the fucking money. Everybody else is fucking living on the goddamn street.
He is now trying to convince rich people to deal with inequality. I don't think they're going to do it. The people who are affected by and hurt by this economic crisis of inequality are ordinary families like you, ordinary families like your kids. And I was hoping that
in recent history, the big boom after World War II, right? The big boom after World War II, the baby boomers, the money they had, it was much more evenly distributed. The corporate tax rate was high, the billionaire tax rate was high, and people were doing good, right? You could work a single member of the family. The father usually was working a job. The mom could afford to stay home. They were raising 2, 3, 4 kids. Their house was paid off. They had land. A lot of them had like vacation homes. They had a pension to look forward to, and they could afford to fucking live and stack money into savings. It hasn't been like that since. We've just been transferring wealth from everybody else to the ultra rich, and they've been stacking it.
In the media space, I might be able to basically speak to the people who are being hurt, speak to people who are being affected, instead of speaking to the rich guys who are benefiting. And that is really when I started to develop the plan that I've been doing the last 4 years, especially the last 2-3 years, which is from
1945 to 1963, the top tax rate was 91% on the money you made above that rate, right? 64, it dropped to 77. 65, it dropped to 70. 82, it drops to 50. And now it's all the way down to what, 37, 36? They got mad at Biden because he raised it from 35 to 37.
I really think that the vast majority of people in this country, and I think this is true if you're here or in the States or in Europe or Australia, do not have a single person in the mainstream media who is communicating effectively, clearly, understandably what is happening in this economic crisis that is increasingly devastating living conditions for millions of ordinary families across the world. And I started to feel that there was a massive gap, basically, like a huge gap to fill, basically telling people what is happening. And I started to feel that really strongly during COVID, that basically the quality of our economics media was extremely low. The quality of our politics from an economics perspective was extremely low. And we were, because of those failures, we were going to see a continuation of falling living standards, but we were going to see this enormous unmet demand for somebody who was simply talking about and explaining what is actually happening in the economy. Okay, so let's talk about
here we go.
What's happening in economics and politics. I think you basically have two strands of economic thought and two strands of political thought, which is you have this kind of old school, the kind of dominant economic ideology of the last 30, 40 years, which is really, I think, personified by the current Labour government, which is if we just do everything a little bit more efficiently.
Europe's not doing it any better, by the way. Oh, well, most of Europe's not doing it any better, right? They're still transferring wealth.
Things will get better. There's no explicit focus on inequality at all. They often tend to focus on trying to change the system in such a way that it benefits the rich, which means inequality tends to get worse over time. And living standards fall for the majority, while this kind of...
A lot of people are fooled. I don't think it's worth even like being hung up on, like, there's a problem now, right? Like, a lot of people were fooled. A lot of people voted against their interest, against other people's interest. A lot of people caused a lot of hardships for that, but I don't think it's worth worrying about at this point. Like, there is a problem now, and we need to make sure that it doesn't destroy the rest of us.
Semi-elite group of politicians and economists themselves are protected. And this is really clearly dying. You can see it in the complete collapse in support for almost all of the traditional centre-left and centre-right parties across Europe. Those parties are only really hanging on in the UK and the US under systems which basically make it almost impossible to replace them. And you're seeing even in those countries, those parties become extremely unpopular and die. That creates this massive...
The problem you have is he has a group of sycophants, right? A group of sycophants that until it literally, like, it can affect them slightly, it can affect them substantially. Until it fucks them over, they don't care, right? I saw a guy apologize to Trump for him and his wife getting caught up in the mass federal layoffs. He's a disabled veteran. His wife works for the VA. She was transferring jobs from one VA hospital to another VA hospital and got put back on probationary period. They sold their home, bought a new home, and down payment, started making payments on a new home in the place they were moving to a couple hours away. And he said that he was sorry that he was inadvertently caught up in the mass layoffs with his wife because he knew it wasn't meant for him. Like, some of these people, I don't know how many of those people, like what percentage of those people they are, it's going to have to destroy them before they wake up and say, God damn, he was trying to fuck me too.
Massive gap for new ideas. So I think we are here in this space now. There is a massive popular demand for new ideas. And really, the political left has almost completely failed to put any new ideas on the table. And that gap is being filled by a new political right.
And a lot of people just felt bad about the economy, their spending power, how much money they had, inflation, how much stuff cost, and they just wanted something different. And it didn't seem like there was a lot of difference going from Biden to Kamala, right? Trump is at least different, I guess. Not a good different, but it is different.
Been very effective in doing things like utilizing social media, utilizing influencers, especially on the right, to basically sell a new political story. And they are, in a sense, taking advantage of the exact same thing which I've just described to you, which is that politics has failed, media has failed. There is massive demand for something which is new because people know that the status quo is failing. And these guys are filling that gap with the problem is foreigners, the problem is immigrants, and they will be very successful. You know, they clearly have taken power of the US government. They will increasingly take control of European governments, and they have taken control of many European governments. They are successful, I think, not necessarily because they are good. I think simply because no one else has really tried to occupy that gap. I think there is massive demand for and massive potential for a simple message delivered to working people. The reason you are getting poor is because your wealth is being squeezed out by the rich and the super rich. They are taking the wealth from you. You aren't able to compete with them. The working class is being bankrupted. The middle class is disappearing. Tax, wealth, not work. I honestly think we have a chance of winning power on that. And I think in this country, in the short term, because we have this centrist party in power, our problem is how do we squeeze the centre on that? And I think the power we have is that the centre is, number one, phenomenally unpopular.
I think that, what was it? I lost my train of thought. Oh, I think that Gavin Newsom is already, with his podcast, the fact that he's having on guests from the right, the fact that he's trying to pitch himself as this like moderate, I think that he is gearing up for a campaign for president.
And number two, we'll fail on the economy. So I think we really have power there. The longer term risk is not the centre, because I think the centre will progressively lose popularity, but these new right ideas. The problem we have is that they will always be much, much, much better funded than us. Quite simply because once billionaires realise that the long-term battle...
I don't know if it's good or bad. I haven't really, he's not actually campaigning, but I think he's gearing up for one.
The battle between tax the rich and blame the foreigners, the billionaires will increasingly aggressively fund blame the foreigners as an idea. But we do also have a kind of trump card against this new right, which is, when it comes to economic policy, almost all of these new right parties want to slash taxes on rich people. And I think that's partly ideological, and I think it's partly because they're funded by billionaires, and that's what the billionaires want. Which means that even in the cases where these guys do take power, and we've seen it in some European countries, but most obviously we've seen it recently in the US, these guys will also preside over an increase in wealth inequality, which will mean, again, a squeeze of assets away from the middle class, away from the working class, and further falls in ordinary families' living conditions. So these guys, whilst they will be very well funded, and they are very clearly in the ascendancy, they have a really, really serious weakness, which is they are literally impoverishing their own supporters. But this is not...
This is why I can't understand, yes, the billionaires have their ears, but if people can get over fucking these crazy, one-off social issues about fucking volleyball players and shit, we still have the votes. The billionaires can tell them whatever the fuck they want, but if they're making life worse for you, how the fuck do you keep voting for them?
Not just the weakness of the political right, this is also the weakness of the political centre. I put a video out a few weeks ago saying Trump and Labour will both fail, because they will both allow wealth inequality to increase, which means the squeezing out of wealth from ordinary families to the rich. And as much as this movement is small and it's almost completely unfunded, the power that we have is both of our competitors are actively impoverishing their voter base, aggressively impoverishing their voter base. So I think we really, really have a chance by pushing a single message again and again and again. Wealth inequality is what is making you poor. The only way to protect your families from poverty is to get the wealth back from the very rich.
I'll tell you how dumb some Trump supporters are. Not all of them. I'll tell you how dumb some of them are. I spent probably an hour of my time today trying to explain to a Trump supporter that Trump couldn't possibly be the 45th, 47th, and 48th president if he runs again in the next election. I couldn't draw a picture. I used a diagram. I recorded a video. I typed it all out. I took all the, anything over 2 syllables of a word out. And they're like, but yeah, they could pass a law. They could ratify this. He'll still be the 47th president, bro. He doesn't get a new number because he got a new term if they're consecutive. The only reason he's the 45th and the 46th is because there was, or the 45th and the 47th is because there was one between him. So even if he does somehow run and win the very next election, he doesn't get a new number. They couldn't fathom. Hey, well, he's already got 2 numbers. Means he get another number.
That means fixing a broken tax system which taxes you at higher rates than them. It means changing the tax system to tax them more, to tax you less, tax wealth, not work. Now, I want to make it clear, because I'm in the business of predictions, what will happen if we don't get this onto the table. If we don't get this idea onto the table, then we will be left with essentially the 2 voices on the table that are already there, which is one, this kind of tired old centrism where we just say business, 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 growth, 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 entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship to ourselves again and again, a million times whilst we impoverish the working class. And this new right idea of the problem is immigrants, the problem is foreigners. And because you have only two basic ideas on the table, what you'll have is you'll get one party in power. So, for example, in this country, we currently have the boring centrists in power. They will oversee a growth in inequality, and they'll become very unpopular, and they'll be replaced by the problem is foreigners party. And the problem is foreigners party will also watch inequality.
That's what we got right now. The problem is the foreigners party.
Grow, and they will eventually become unpopular, and people vote.
Yes. And this is not a one-off thing. Hold on. Let me show you a clip. What is the name? The Necessary Conversation? They think that he's getting a new number. They don't understand when the president does consecutive terms, he's the same number. Watch this guy arguing with his dad.
Have you ever been wrong in your life?
Yeah, I was wrong when I thought that Trump would do 45 and 47. He's also going to do 48.
Okay, so you're not able to admit something you've been wrong about.
Oh, yeah, I'm wrong. I thought he'd be done at 47. I'm wrong. He's going to make it to 48.
Okay. So you just kind of
he's going to make it to 48.
Refuse to engage with the question then.
You asked me a question. I gave you a answer.
But your answer is a future prediction. Therefore, you can't know if you're wrong about that or not.
So even if I told the person, I said, even if I concede to you, the Constitution is gone. Okay, he can run for an unlimited amount of terms. If he runs in 2028 and he wins, he will not be the 48th president. He'll still be the 47th president. And then they messaged me back and said, I don't get what you don't understand about this.
Well, I'm wrong because I thought 47 would be the end of it.
Okay.
He's going to be 48.
I'll be honest. I had.
It's a hard watch, but it's very interesting. I like looking into the minds of Trump supporters and seeing what makes them fucking tick.
Kitty down. I heard the question, but I didn't really get it.
The mom didn't get the question. The mom didn't get the question, and the question is, have you ever been wrong before? I don't get it.
So we're wrong about what? He asked if we're wrong about the future?
Do you apologize when you are wrong? Do you admit when you are wrong?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
In their mind, there's only been 48 terms of presidents. 47, I guess. We've only had presidents 47 times.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. He's going to be the 48th president.
Yeah, so the answer is no. You don't apologize and you're never wrong.
Yes, Dad cannot do it.
No, there's no.
We just said yes.
Goddamn, you don't even take what I say verbatim.
You're not understanding the question, or you're willfully ignoring the...
No. You're not understanding the question.
Have you ever done anything terrible to, let's say, me or Chad, or said anything that was wrong? And then
I think she was a decent candidate. I think Trump is really good at weaponizing the media and the press and everybody against it. Doesn't matter who.
said you were sorry.
Probably not.
Have you ever been wrong in your life?
Yeah.
It's a wild podcast, dude. They say some crazy racist shit on here. So, who started the war in Ukraine?
Who started the war in Ukraine?
Zelensky started the war so that he could clean up.
Okay. How did he start it, Dad? I'm curious what you think. What was the first action he took to start the war?
He went and got all those missiles and shit from the United States of America and prompted Moscow to defend itself.
By invading his country?
No, he had already.
How have we went from the fucking cold? This guy grew up during the Cold War. Like when they were doing drills and shit underneath their desk.
Already started the invasion behind the curtain.
He started the invasion of his own country?
Yes, he doesn't give a shit about.
Wait a minute. How you're saying Zelensky somehow conscripted Russian troops to invade
No, he
his
didn't
country?
conscript them. He set up the stage for Moscow to have to take action in order to stop him from. Hell, he was bombing the shit out of Moscow.
Okay.
Where the hell do you get your news?
Where do you get yours? And I know the answer. It's Newsmax. Dad, who started the war in Ukraine?
Zelensky started the war so that he could clean up.
Okay. How did he start it?
I don't know. The guys are wild. Let's finish this video.
The boring centrists in again. And what you will see here is the right-wing party, the problem is foreigners party, has space to move into, which is they can say, okay, the reason we failed was because we weren't hard enough on foreigners. They can rebrand and they can come in further to the right. And this is basically exactly what we saw in this country. We had David Cameron, who was this kind of...
Trump came in even harder with the foreigners are the problem, right? Even the tariffs, all right? The foreign countries are taking all our money and they're screwing us over and we got to get it back from them. So even Trump came in harder on foreigners this time around.
Essentially a boring centrist.
When people are uncertain and scared and fucking not able to afford things and not be able to pay for things and like small things, like I can't even afford to get, my kid wants this, or, I want to do that, can't take a vacation or whatever. They want someone to blame. That's the whole populist movement, is the way that Bernie Sanders and Trump are alike, is giving somebody to blame. And they both took off kind of like wildfire with people, right? Trump is the foreigners, and Bernie Sanders is fucking wealthy, dude. The wealthy. They're looking for somebody to blame. They're hurt. They're scared. They don't know why it happened. All they know is I work my fucking face off, right? I abide by the law. I don't get in trouble. I don't cheat. I don't steal. I go to fucking work every day, and shit's still not fucking working out for me.
And he was replaced briefly by Theresa May, but eventually by Boris Johnson, who was essentially a reflanking to the right of the political right, which is, we don't want to, he really was a replacing of a boring centrist with the problem is foreigners. And when he lost, he was replaced by, very briefly, Liz Truss, who again was flanked further to the right. And when she immediately crashed the economy, we again got boring centrist Rishi Sunak, and he was replaced by boring centrist Keir Starmer. And what you are seeing now in this country is the growth of Nigel Farage, who is again the political right moving to the right. And you'll see the same thing in the US. So in the US you have Donald Trump. He is the problem is foreigners politician. He will fail. He could be followed by another boring centrist, or he could be followed by another new sort of rebranding of the political right, which is what we need to do is be more extreme on the right. And billionaires will probably be funding these new right-wing parties because they see them as protecting them from taxing the rich. And what you'll see is eventually these right-wing parties will become more and more extreme, because it's the only way you can keep winning elections when you keep failing on the economy. What you are being popular for is blaming foreigners and immigrants, and if you're not succeeding on the economy, you can keep doubling down on that. You have space to the right to go into, whereas the centre kind of have nowhere to go. They'll become increasingly unpopular. So I think we have to be realistic about this. That leads you over a period of time from what may initially have been sensible seeming the problem is foreigners politics, closer and closer and closer to real fascism. I mean, that is where it goes. And I'm not saying Farage is a fascist, I'm not saying Trump is a fascist. That is where it will go over time. This is exactly what happened in the early 20th century. That is what will happen if we do not get a new voice on the table. And I think it's worth sitting and thinking about that for a minute, because I know we live in countries, here in the UK, but I know we've got a growing US viewership. We live in countries where politics is increasingly factional, and people who view themselves as on the left hate people who view themselves as on the right. People who view themselves as on the right hate people who view themselves as on the left. The way this will go will be I was going to say slow, but it could become increasingly quick, slide into fascism, whilst both of you, those of you who view yourselves as on the left and those of you who view yourselves as on the right, will slide further and further and further into poverty. So I think it's really, really important that you recognise neither of these groups are going to give you what you need, which is your houses back and your ability to be able to have a family. Okay, so this is a fight which I genuinely believe we can win. Not because we are strong, not because we are well-funded, but quite simply because we are competing with two political ideologies which are both bankrupting the public. Bankrupting 80-90% of the public. And that makes them very weak to a campaign which basically simply reveals the truth of what's happening, which is
the 12th Amendment to the 22nd Amendment says that, the 2 terms, right? And even if you served a portion of another person's term, if it was more than 2 years, then you only got 1 term left. But people forget that the 12th Amendment says that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president. So that's Trump, right? He's already served his 2 terms under the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution. He's constitutionally ineligible to be president. So the 12th Amendment says no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president. So it is covered in the Constitution. He can't run as J.D. Vance's fucking vice president. It's plainly written. You don't even have to interpret it like, oh, well, he can't run for president, so he couldn't, potentially, it doesn't say he can't be vice president, and then, J.D. Vance dies or some shit. No, it says he's constitutionally ineligible to be president, and anybody who's constitutionally ineligible to be president cannot be vice president.
The reason you're getting poor is because the rich are eating your cake, they are squeezing you out, they're taking your assets, they're driving your family into poverty. The power that we have is, really, we've got 2 powers. One, we are the only voice which will protect ordinary people from poverty. And 2, we have strength in numbers.
Do you guys know that Elon Musk, the darling of the right wing currently, is getting such bad press that they are making they are making AI photos of him saving sick children and adopting kids that their parents died.
This is genuinely in the financial interest of...
I mean, he would just have to do it illegally. He can't unilaterally change the Constitution.
The vast majority of people,
if you're talking to me,
both on the political left and on the political right, this works for them financially. So I genuinely believe this is a fight we can win. The problem is we're not fighting it. There's just not enough people getting this idea into the public domain. And I want to talk a little bit about 2 ideas. One is the Overton window, and the other is message discipline. So the Overton window is an idea in politics, that there's a kind of window of ideas which are considered acceptable, sensible, normal, non-extreme at a given point in time. We've got some videos on this channel, maybe I'll link one in the description, talking about why economists don't talk about wealth inequality. The vast majority of economists are rich people who are not being hurt by this, they are benefiting from it, and they do not think inequality is the problem. That means that at the moment, focusing on and centralising inequality, wealth inequality as the core problem, is not popular with economists, and it's outside the Overton window. This really is the key challenge that we have. And people sometimes ask me, why don't Labour talk to you? Why don't Labour get this idea in their manifesto? Really, it comes down to, very simply, that answer. This is outside the Overton window. The group of people in this country and in most countries across the world who decide what is acceptable, what is sensible, what is wise, is a very small group of rich and posh people. And they've decided that this idea is simply unacceptable. We need to push back on that, but in order to do that, we need message discipline. So this is the second concept I want to introduce. Message discipline is, again, another political idea. This is the reason why when politicians go on TV, they're always unbelievably, painfully boring, which is that they get told by their political party, if this subject comes up, you have to say this. And when they go on the TV, they're not really thinking, what's my opinion on that? What do I think about that? They're thinking, what has my political party told me to say about this issue? And for that reason, when politicians go on TV, they all say the exact same thing again and again and again and again and again. And the reason they do this is how you get an idea into the Overton window. If you say an idea again and again and again and again, and it's important that a variety of people say it, and then you guys out there hear 25 different posh-looking, smart-sounding people saying the same idea, the problem is immigrants, the problem is immigrants, the problem is immigrants, on the TV, then you start to believe that idea. This is how an idea goes from being crazy, wacky, unbelievable, no way true, to being common sense. An idea travels from being absolutely outrageous to being commonly accepted as common sense, simply by lots of people saying it again and again and again and again and again. Now, I'm not a political party. We don't have a political party. We will and are trying to influence the political parties. What I have is this YouTube channel and you. And we need to start using this message discipline now. I need to keep saying, and you need to keep saying, and you need to get your friends and your family to keep saying, obviously, the reason why you guys are getting poor is because of growing wealth inequality. And you can choose, when you push that message, either to use my name in my videos or not. So you can go to your friends and family and say, hey, look, there's this guy, Gary's Economics. I think he's explained it really, really well. I think if you watch his videos, it's really compelling that actually the reason for growing poverty is inequality. I think it's important that to stress this, you increasingly say it's obviously true, because it is obviously true. Obviously, you cannot squeeze all of the wealth out of the middle class and not expect poverty. You cannot concentrate the wealth into an unbelievably small group of people and not expect poverty. These things are obviously true, and we need to make it understood that they're obviously true by saying them again and again and again and again. And when I say you can use this channel or not use this channel, what I mean is, if you think it's the best way to convince someone to send to that podcast or to send them to our Understanding the Economy series, do that. But I think one weakness that we have, one weakness that I have, is that this channel, it's called Gary's Economics, the logo is like my face and it's become very attached to my personal brand. It's very, very important that these ideas are not 100% attached to, these are Gary Stevenson's ideas. Because it's easy to take out one guy, basically. You know, I know how this is going to work.
Gary's Economics, Gary Stevenson.
If this keeps growing at the rate that it's growing, I will get attacked more and more and more and more and more by the press, by the media, and eventually these guys will land the punch that's going to land and I will probably be gone. And I understand that's how it works. It's important that rather than just saying, go watch Gary's Economics, that you start understanding these ideas yourself and talking about them as your ideas, as ideas that are obviously true, that you understand. It's really, really important that we have a diversity of voices saying this, and it's not just me, it's not just me. And that brings me to another weakness that we have, which is we need broader buy-in from powerful spaces. So what I mean when I say that is, I decided very consciously to move to a YouTube channel as opposed to writing for The Guardian, for example, because I felt that it would be meaningful to working class people to see and hear somebody from a working class background speaking about the economy. And I think that is one of the reasons why this channel has been popular. I think that's one of the reasons why the book is popular, because working class people really want to see somebody from the same place as them speaking about the economy. That makes
thank you for the donation.
A powerful communicator to ordinary people, to the working class. But it really, really...
He's been getting more traction too. I want to see this guy, like, I'm sure he's doing it for his own reasons, right? He's getting a following. You know, he claims he's doing it for... It's hard to think anybody's just doing it, everything for just to get the information out. But I don't care. This guy was on Piers Morgan the other night. I want him everywhere. I want him on fucking Joe Rogan. I want it because he's not backing down and saying, well, yeah, I guess, you know, we could give the wealthy a break. They deserve it, blah, blah. Like, this guy's standing up and saying, this is the problem, and there's only one way to fix it.
Hurts me when I'm trying to communicate to people in positions of power. So when I say that, I mean high-level politicians, or really any politicians, people in the media, high-level economists, central bankers, people in think tanks, people in the civil service. You know, it's a relatively small group of people who control the levers of power, and almost all of them are rich, posh people that come from rich, posh schools, and they don't like me. They don't like the way that I look, they don't like the way that I sound, they don't like the way that I come out of nowhere, having made a ton of money, and say, you guys are all idiots, you guys are all wrong. And that's very understandable. That's very, very understandable. So we need, and what I need you to do, if you can, is to act as a go-between. Basically, you act on two levels, which is number one, you really make this common sense wisdom on the streets amongst ordinary British men and women, or American men and women, if that's where you are. Get everybody to understand it. But if you're able to get into positions of power, or influence people in positions of power, politicians, media, influencers, celebrities, you know, love to get Carol Vorderman on the channel if you're interested. Civil service, academics, if you can get into these spaces or influence these spaces, especially if you sound less working class than me, I need people like you to act as go-betweens. And don't go in there and say, oh, Gary's Economics is really smart and you guys are idiots. Go in there and speak in your posh voice and say, hey, I think this idea is... I think this poverty could be caused by inequality. We need academics saying it. We need people on the political left saying it. We need people at these think tanks saying it. We really, really, really need more diversity of voice. We are all part of this conversation. So I need you to boost the ideas, boost the videos, boost the channels, but also start trying to spread them, trying to understand them yourself. I want to see academics at Oxford or at Harvard or at Cambridge or LSE writing papers saying, we think the reason for growing inequality, before growing poverty, is growing inequality. I need other people saying it, with voices like that. It can't just be me. And if we do that, I think we can win. I think we can win. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I never expected it to kind of grow at this unbelievable pace that it is growing. And it's quite scary for me, to be honest, to see the growth on the channel, and the book's been #1 for 6 weeks now, and I just, I get recognised all the time. It's scary and it's weird, but basically I was always convinced that a simple, true message, which could continually be reproven by predicting better than the mainstream media, predicting better than the mainstream politicians, would be believed by the public. And I think it's starting to be proven to be true. So my message to you guys is, get on board. Start singing from the same hymn sheet. Get some message discipline. If you're out there in the political left, ask your political party you're associated with, or your think tank you're in, or the group you're associated in, why are we not talking about inequality as the cause for poverty? Why are we not saying that? If you're on the political right, if you're a member of the Conservative Party, if you're a Reform voter, ask them, why are they not saying that? You know, this is not a left-right issue. This is a poverty issue. This is going to happen in every country, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. Both Donald Trump and Labour are presiding over increasing inequality. You know, call into LBC, ask them, why are you not talking about inequality? Well, inequality is blowing up. Stock markets are at all-time highs. The rich are richer than they've ever been, and your ordinary families can't turn the heating on. Make it common sense. Of course it's inequality. Of course it's inequality. Say it again and again.
Yeah, please consider supporting the show at coldbeer.fund. That's how I pay to keep doing the show.
Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with anyone who...
Thank you for sharing the link.
Call into the call-in shows. Make this the new common sense. And I guess this brings me to the final point, which is a lot of people want concrete actions. They say to me, what can I do, Gary? What can I do? You freaked me out, you scared me. What can I do? And I want to finish this video by trying my best to give a really clear answer to that question of what can you do. The first thing I want you to do is take a big breath in, a big breath out, and recognize this economic situation is an economic situation that is going to get worse. It is an economic situation that is going to get worse. This situation of this lack of immigrants, this lack of foreigners, is also a situation that is going to get worse. Both of those things are going to affect different people differently. If you are not the poorest, think about how that's going to affect people poorer than you. If you are not on the sharp end of the anti-immigrant, anti-foreigner hatred, think about how it's going to affect people who are. The reason I say those things is twofold. The first one is, I need you to be ready emotionally for the difficult and divisive times that are coming. Because if you are
Thanks for the follow.
If you are frightened, if you're scared, I can't do nothing with you. I can't do nothing with you. I want to tell another quick story from when I went on Piers Morgan a few weeks ago. So when I went on, Piers was running quite late, an hour, maybe an hour, 20 minutes late, which meant I had to sit in the green room with Dave Rubin and his entourage for an hour and 20 minutes. They're very nice. And while we were in the green room, we could see on the big TV the interviews that Piers Morgan was doing. And I don't watch Piers Morgan's channel normally, but I watched these about an hour of interviews. I think it was 2 interviews before I went on. And I could see what they were doing, right? They have their left-wing head and they have their right-wing head. And both the interviews before mine, they had the left-wing heads were all black and the right-wing heads were all white. And they tried to say things to make that left-wing head angry, to make them lose their temper. When I was on, they wanted to get, I think there was a transsexual, they're trying to get her angry about the Olympics or something, just trying to get to say something outrageous, tried to get to lose her temper. Then they look to the audience and say, look, this is what those people are like. And what they're trying to do is cause division. They're trying to cause division, they're trying to make you hate each other, they're trying to make you angry, they're trying to make you think those guys out there are your enemy. And when I say that, I'm not just talking to the political right, I'm talking to the political left as well. They want you to hate each other, they want you to be angry. Listen, here in the UK, in the US, all over the world, the working class is multiracial, it's multi-ethnic, it includes men and women, it includes people who own houses, people who don't own houses. If you hate each other, if the men hate the women and the women hate the men and the white people hate the non-white people and the non-white people hate the white people, I can't do nothing with you. We will never be able to stand together. We will never be able to fight. We'll never be able to win. The power that we have is
that's the biggest thing, is changing the mentality of it's left versus right, or the lunatics and the trans and the crazy Nazi. It's the fucking poor people versus the wealthy people, and we have overwhelming numbers.
There's more of us. That is a power we only use if we fight together. We cannot afford to allow ourselves to be frightened, to be scared, or to hate each other. The second thing is, I need you guys to be prepared for a long fight. We don't win this tomorrow, we don't win it the next day, we don't win this next week, we don't win this next year, okay? Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents fought for generations for the kind of ability you have to own assets and your parents had to own assets. This is not a fight we win quickly. The reason that I say that is that I know people want me to arrange some kind of march on Parliament. Now, we talk about this a lot. I don't want to get you guys to go crazy, email your MP every day, march on Parliament, use all your energy, and then be in a situation where we're not in a position to get anything. I don't want you guys to be disappointed. This is a long fight. You need to conserve your energy for a marathon, not a sprint, okay? We build, we build, we build, we build, we build, we build, and then we go together and we win when we have enough power. We can win the argument. We are fighting against two
I don't even think he talks about which political way he leans.
Political ideologies which will definitely drive your family and your kids' families into poverty. They've got nothing to offer you. The argument is there. The argument is simple. We need to get wealth back into the hands of ordinary families. That means taxing working people less and rich people more. Tax wealth, not work. Protect ordinary families. Make it common sense. Tell your friends, tell your families, build the movement. Support other people who are saying the same things. Be that person yourself. We need more voices singing off the same hymn sheet. We can win this argument. You win the argument, you get the power, you change the tax system, and then you get your assets back. And that is how we stop the economy from collapsing. Good luck. Thank you. Send it to your mum. Send it to your friends, to your family. Good luck.
So it's like a 10-minute video. It's a long TikTok video, but he does a really good job of explaining it. If you go check him out at Gary's Economics, his name is Gary Stevenson. He's got a YouTube channel as well, Gary's Economics. But like I said, he was on. He did a good job on Piers Morgan as well.
If you know your history, can you point to a period in UK history, for example, where massively punishing
the rich people,
rich people by massively taxing them has actually benefited the country?
Listen,
because I can't really.
My dad, born in 57, he worked for the post office, Royal Mail, 35 years, never once earned more than the average wage in the country. He was able to buy a house, support family. My parents are retired now. They own their own property. They're financially secure. That's not possible. He lived in an...
Oh, thank you, Emma. Thank you for the donation. 3 6-packs from buymeacoffee.com/coldbeer. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Era where the top rate of tax was much, much, much higher. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s in the UK, in the US, the top rate of tax on large estates was significantly higher. And in that time period, it's not a coincidence, ordinary people could afford to buy houses. They could afford to, listen.
It's not they act like it's some type of coincidence, right? We have this super high tax rate or a much higher tax rate on the wealthy, and normal people fucking thrived. It's not a coincidence.
Not normal, okay? Read your history, right? You read Charles Dickens? In this country we're talking in right now, 150 years ago, ordinary men and women lived in desperate poverty, okay? That's going to happen again.
If you know your history, can you point to a period in UK history, for example, where massively
punishing the rich people, punishing them. We've given the ability to make more money than they could ever fucking dream of making. What do you mean punishing them? They ought to fucking subsidize some shit. When they're running around with a billionaire, dude, they ought to subsidize some fucking programs. You're goddamn right. Tell them to go make that fucking billions of dollars in Guatemala. Or get fucked. All right, guys. I'm out for the night. Thank you all for joining us. It's 1:30 here. I'm Will Bird. This is Cold Beer Confessional. You want to support the show, go to coldbeer.fund, or you can use bits or whatever. Coldbeer.fund is the website where the donation links are. If you want to support the show or follow my other social medias, they're all linked to the top. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here tonight. You guys have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see you on the next one. We didn't get into the North Carolina Supreme Court race where they're trying to nullify 65,000 votes. But if somebody will remind me, we'll talk about it tomorrow. They're trying to throw out 65,000 votes if people don't come forward and claim that those are their votes. They're changing the rules after the votes were already fucking cast. It's ridiculous.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better.
It's one thing to change rules before the votes are cast, right? But to have people cast them, think that they voted, and then say, oh, no. If you don't show up within this many days, your vote's null and void. Some of these people, a percentage of these people are not going to get notified or not going to know. That's ridiculous.
Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord.
And it's also a Republican can be elected to the Supreme Court instead of the Democrat who already won the election.
Fucking meat hammers like four in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, eating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit.
They only have 15 business days to provide state election officials with the necessary proof of identity that would verify their votes. 15 days, or their vote doesn't count. It's already cast. She already won.
Shit. Piss him off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them beds, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat rockets. I strapped them to my shoes and then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine, with Trump in between. Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa, wait. Stop. What? What? I'll get my files. Wait, what are you doing? It's it. Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously.
If your 401k is doing rough, I wouldn't be watching in the morning.
Here we go, I think I started some shit.